I've never started a podcast strong.
This is not going to go well.
How you doing, Mike AM? It's a good day for a podcast. He said, yeah, let's do it. I said, fuck yeah, okay, let's do it. And that's how it happened, and it's happening now.
Okay.
You start with the train wreck, and it can only go up.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I feel like that's very true. If you start at the lowest point, someone said that, someone famous, and I'm not going to quote him because I'm going to misquote him, but someone said the best place to start a story is at the very end, like the closest to the end as possible.
Oh, was it Quentin Tarantino?
I have no idea. No, it was a writer. I'm pretty sure it was a writer. So like he just wrote books, not like movies or screenplays. But it was an interesting thing to say because like most things we communicate our stories, right? So kind of the way you approach something like that. Change your perspective, I think. That's
kind of the hook, though. You tell me why it's significant, and then maybe I'll listen to you.
Exactly. And then what's the power behind that? It's the more people you align to yourself with, I guess, or the more people you share your ideas, the stronger your tribe grows. Ooh. Right? The more people in your tribe, the more people in your community, the stronger your community grows. Why do you want people in your community? Because there's strength in numbers. Right? So it's all very basic to me, like in the sense, like it goes back to a very primitive way, to a very primitive thing. Anything you break down to, the ideas may become more complex, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to convince someone to see it from your perspective, it's because you're trying to have an alliance with someone. You're trying to bridge a connection with them, right? Again, break that down to its most basic form. It's strength in numbers and safety, better community. Utopia, I guess, at the end.
Yeah, is that how you think of social media? It's you don't, like when you post on Instagram, for instance, you think of it as like, this is my tribe I'm communicating to.
Ooh,
this
interesting.
Is the followers. So
with social media can be very tricky because the way I look at social media, I have two social media accounts. One is private and it's personal. So it's usually there's just dumb stuff I do in my daily life. And the reason I post that is because sometimes I feel like it's just human nature to want to record things. And I wanted to separate that from trying to get people to validate me, via me putting myself out on social media and trying to like get feedback from that. So anything I do in my personal life or I think is funny or stupid or something that's just me is on my personal account, which is usually just friends, just post whenever. And then my account that everyone knows, like that would know me from like my art, is business. I'm trying to grow something. I'm trying to grow a business because I'm trying to sell a product. It might be art, but at the end I'm trying to provide something that I'm creating that I think has value to someone else and trying to, get my stuff out there. At the end of the day, I am just selling something, right?
Do you have like a schedule with that?
No, because Instagram's been like their algorithm's been so messed. Like I feel like before you could create schedules, you get a quick response in terms of whether it was working because when you posted something at 7 p.m., people would see it at 7 p.m., right? Now it's like they changed the algorithm so that it's not a chronological order. So it's based on like the most popular or like stuff they think you might like. So people might miss your posts. So I found that like after
you got to get Vero and then you can't post anything at all.
Exactly, right? Send everyone right back. I feel like that's a good, some sort of art display or something. It's like it was all just to get you off the social media. This hope for this utopia of, great social media did not come. Yeah. Unfortunately,
it doesn't interfere with your real life. Yeah. It happens in chronological order, and then you just wait for it to load, and you're just
Also, their interface, not their interface, but their interface was weird.
You're already speaking of it in the past tense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I'm going to speak of their beta. Yeah. So just speaking of their beta, because like. I don't even think they've released yet, have they?
No.
So speaking of what they launched with, it's not user-friendly, I feel like. I'm very used to everything being very simple. Like, think of Instagram, right? Like, you have, like, minimal icons. Think of Apple. The reason they do it is to appeal to everybody because the easier you learn to use it, the easier it's going to seem like you solved stuff, which makes your brain happy, which means you're enjoying the experience, right? If you can figure things out really quickly, your brain is happy because your brain likes to problem solve, and the quicker you solve problems, the better it is, the happier you feel. So the way you do that is you design things well, right? You look at their interface, like compare that to Instagram. It just seems like there's so much going on. Even with the color changes, there's like, you have different gradients happening. You have different menus everywhere. Like, it just seems like a lot is happening. And just from a visual perspective, it turned me off, let alone everything else that's happening or engaging with other people.
Yeah.
So I haven't even touched it. I'll give it time. I'll let them, if it gets sorted out or if they fix that interface, then sure.
I maybe like upload a few like really cool things.
Yeah.
And I actually read the privacy policy because I'm like, all right,
See
they're
what they
bragging
got?
about how, special it is. And I'm like, it's the same
shit, eh?
They,
Yeah.
like they own the difference is that they don't they won't take your pictures and then you find them in an advertisement later.
No.
Yet. And
Yeah.
Facebook didn't do that at the beginning either.
No.
The end goal for them is probably to get a bunch of people on it. They come off Facebook and then Facebook buys them out. Like what happened to Instagram, like is Snapchat property of Facebook yet?
I don't know, but you know what? I find that like eventually it happens. They just meld it together. Or like look what Instagram did. They basically turned themselves into a part of Snapchat. Like they just had the same features, and then everyone's like, "You're copying Snapchat," and then nobody cared. Like it's like, yeah, we're just gonna use it. It's like we're calling you out, but like we still enjoy it.
Yeah, well, thank you though.
Yeah, it's like you guys are the worst, but this is kind of cool. And like
now I don't have to get Snapchat.
Exactly. Now I don't use Snapchat because they made it easier because now everything's in one place. It's all about like just making it super simple for people. The more simple you make it, the more people can enjoy it. Mm-hmm. At least from like a social media aspect or like something you're interfacing with. I don't want to get confused with color gradients.
For the people who don't know who they're listening to.
Oh yeah.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am a local artist known as Dope Chief. Dun dun dun.
He's dope.
Thank you.
So
local artist, I should say local to Hamilton, Ontario,
yeah.
Canada.
We don't know that.
No,
it's just Hamiltonians listening to
That's
this.
true.
This
That
podcast
is
is
true.
global.
Exactly.
It's,
because of the interwebs.
Because of the internet.
Yes.
I feel like we're...
I like that album by Childish Gambino.
Yeah, dude, I was listening to Kawaii earlier today.
Also a great album.
Yeah, very... It just flew under the radar. I don't know if it had any sort of official
I
release.
feel like most of his music just flies under the radar.
Redbone got a lot of love.
Redbone did, but like that was one song. Like that album was weird. It was really
so
weird.
good, but it's
yeah,
weird.
it's really really good. Yeah, but it's so weird. It's so weird.
He was listening to a lot of P-Funk.
When it gets that extreme from where you originally started, I no longer start looking at these albums. There's been a few of them. Like these albums has necessarily music for digestion as I do art projects. I feel like in my brain, once it triggers something in my head, I'm like, okay, this is an art project. Like you are now stepping into the realm of experimenting in something that is beyond the consumption of, I'm gonna just throw that on and listen to that. Which is amazing, but like I treat them differently.
Yeah,
at least in my head. Then like, oh,
do you get into like Redbone moods?
Sometimes, but they come in like very very tiny waves.
There's this song on there. I think it's called California.
Yeah,
you know the one.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the weird. That's the weird.
I was like,
she must have fucking lost her mind. Yeah, yeah. She wanna move to California.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is not for me. And then like 2 listens later, I was like, this is my favorite song.
Right? That's what I'm saying. See, that's what I'm saying though. That to me is now you're entering into the realm of art in the sense of not digested, just like quick music. To me, there's a difference because that's so out there that you haven't heard it before, that it is what it is purposely doing is it's trying to break that. That's the initial shock. And you're like, the hell is this? Initially, as people, we're like, fuck that. This is not for me. But like something in your head happens and you're like, this is actually like, it's so out there that I'm coming around to it. And I like that. But that's, for me, it's like, that's kind of like art.
Have you had
more
people
than-
experience that with your art?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. No one's
No
told
one's
me that.
told you
No.
about, like, oh, your stuff rubbed me the wrong way at first, but eventually
No,
it spoke to me.
Usually, it's just like, well, at least with the older stuff, the stuff I was doing that was very pop culture related, that stuff, a lot of people, it was initial, like, kind of like disgust, but then interest because of usually I added like a grotesque twist to it, or something melting or something like that. And that was the initial kind of the thing that would push people back, and then like they'd enjoy it. But no, nothing that like grotesque someone and they're like, yeah, no, I like it. This
When they're out, they're out.
yeah, exactly. I have the weirdest boner. Like, no, that's no, I don't think anyone that's done to anyone anything yet. I don't think anyone's experienced that.
Oh man, I love all the Bender related designs you did.
Yeah, I loved doing this. I did a sticker pack that was, it was basically the same Bender head, but in different versions. So there was one.
I think you had an Evil Bender one.
Yeah, it was Flexo.
Yeah, Flexo.
It was literally the exact same Bender head, except it had a tiny black OT.
Well, Bender is Evil Bender.
Evil Bender, yeah, he's the good
Spoiler
Bender.
alert.
Yeah, oops. And then I had the Gender Bender, which is
yeah?
literally, it was the same Bender, just with like a wig. And then there was the Wooden Bender, which is when he uses wood or whatever. I loved doing the Bender stuff.
You posted a little while ago, like, hey, I'm taking a new direction with my stuff. This is sort of it. And then a little while later, everything else was gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's fucking bold. And have people been open to that? Have you had anyone be like, what the fuck, man, put your Futurama stuff back? And
I think it's a lot harder for people who are trying to find me now, because like I used to get, like, while it was still up, I used to have a lot of people who would still find me through the old stuff, and they'd be like, I found this on Google, or I found this on some other site, and then like I found you through Instagram or whatever, and they'll just start liking all the old stuff. So it's a lot harder for people to find me or realize that it's me that created the stuff that they found. So I think that part, which is exactly what I wanted it to do, because the disassociation I wanted to have with the older things I created, it just wasn't, it's not in line with the stuff that I'm trying to produce now and push now. So no, I haven't really had much negative feedback, but I've noticed in terms of engagement through social media that I'm not getting enough, or not getting the same engagement as I used to, but based on the old stuff.
so you're building back up a little bit.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's basically I'm just trying to build an entirely new audience, which is very difficult because people who came for one thing, people are they're very you can boil them down to very basic in the sense of like they like it or they don't. If you start introducing, they don't like change. People don't like change. The second you start doing something different, like, this isn't what I like you for. This isn't what I've categorized you as. You're no longer in that box. It's disorganized. I don't like that. You're out. Next. Like, right? People like to see the same thing. Social media, it's the same thing. You're scrolling through stuff. You see the people you follow. It kind of triggers something in your head. That, I remember I like this person. I'm like that photo. Oh, they popped up again. Like I like what they're doing, the work that they're producing, or the fact that I keep seeing them produce stuff. Right? It's the brain. It's just the way it works. It likes patterns. So I don't know. I think building that back up so people can start seeing me in that same pattern. That's where that consistency had to come from, and it meant getting rid of all that old stuff.
I think it's for the best.
Absolutely, it's for the best.
Yeah.
The way I'm starting to see the stuff I'm trying to create right now is longevity, and there is zero longevity in in what I believe is fan art. I believe fan art has no longevity, and it's something that is based off of the culture in which we are in now, which is amazing. I see a lot of fan art, and I think it's amazing. And I see a lot of great artists adding their own twists to it, which is what I did. But for me personally, it's not what I want to continue to grow, because I also feel that there's a lot of limitations. legally, like we can start talking about like copyright issues and making products and trying to get into bigger markets. If you are trying to sell it as a product, there are limitations doing that. And just even from a creative standpoint, I think if you're always building off someone else's work and not fully changing it or just using it as a tool to make money, that's great. But if you're not really exploring something that's your own, you're adding to the dialogue that is today's culture, and you are adding to it. But I don't think you're necessarily adding something that's incredibly unique. Because I can't, like, how far can I really dive into something that you're basing my perception on already? Like a Homer, like how much are you really going to add to Homer to make me really think about him in a different way? Like you're using him as nostalgia, basically. You're using these characters as something to grab your attention quickly because you already recognize it.
So you felt like it was kind of cheap?
Oh, it's very cheap. I think it's absolutely cheap. I think it's a quick way. If you're a good artist, or even if you're a decent artist, go make some fan art, add something to it, like maybe make it in your own style. And if you do it unique enough and you do it in the right markets, you'll make some money. Like you'll easily make money because it's about people getting people's attention quickly. Like people are happy when they see things that they recognize. And if you're also presenting it in a way that is different or they haven't really seen before, now that's what's really going to entice them, because now you've got their attention, and now what is it that you're saying about it or that you're doing? For me, it was coming at it in a bit of a grotesque, a bit of a just something a little more twisted. But again, even that to me was not unique. For me, that whole series or doing like the pop culture stuff was very just kind of to grow, because like it was kind of my introduction to social media. Like I had never done anything before it. I had never really presented my work in any other way. It started with me forcing myself to work every day on a drawing. That's how I started. I'm like, I'm going to sketch something and I'm going to ink it every day. I'm going to do that. That's all I'm doing. It doesn't matter what else I'm doing that day. I need to get this done. And that was more to help build like my work ethic, to get myself into having to do something every day.
How long ago was that?
That was probably 3 years ago, maybe about 3 years ago. And then once I had about 100 of those, as I started coloring them, and then I started making prints.
Well, what did you color with?
Digitally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Once I started thinking about the art more as a product, I started thinking about it more as a business, like the stuff that I'm producing more as a business, rather than this is art that I'm making and it means something and I need to sell it for a lot. I thought, how can I make the most money doing with the least amount of money invested, right? Which is which is something that, this is a whole other topic, but something that artists don't do enough of is look into business, like take business courses, learn about business, learn about marketing, things that to help you grow a business, stuff that people kind of neglect. They focus a lot on the art, which is just focusing on the product.
I feel like that element of it is shamed a lot in the community.
Which is usually from people who are broke or don't know how to do it themselves. So, instead of criticizing something about being a sellout or something like that, like I'm trying to live off what I'm creating.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to, work for someone else or, I've seen it so many times where people that's why I don't have necessarily, like, I feel bad about fan art. Like I'm not a fan of it or creating it, but I think more people should do it for just to exactly to build yourself up as an artist, learn what you are good at, learn, how to get into the market, because like getting that fan art is a lot easier to present to people than something that you like. Let's say I make a character and I made a world for it, but no one's ever seen it. How are you going to relate to that when you see it? As opposed to if I painted a Mickey and put it behind me, like you know who that is. You feel some kind of way about that character, and now you already have connected with it. So I would say that's a great way for artists to learn more about business, because people don't know enough about business when it comes to selling product. And that's what you're selling. You're selling product. It might be art. It might be special to you. It might mean everything to you. You might have, stayed up all night making it, and I'm sure you love it, but it's art and it's a product, and you need to see its value. And then how can you present that, and how can you let other people know its value?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of business. It's a lot of business, and there's just as the business to me can go as equally deep as like the art itself.
Do you enjoy the business element?
I do, because it's, again, the way I see my brain working specifically is very like, I need to solve this issue, and because it's a real world problem for me, like I'm trying to make the business grow. It's not about how can I solve this issue with a specific format, but like how can I solve this issue creatively? Like what can I do within my skill range, or what skills can I get to like really present this in a unique way, and get people's attention. And then it's about looking at what's worked before for other people, who's done it that's very similar to me in terms of my art style or what I'm trying to accomplish, and then kind of studying what they do, and then looking at others. I thought, again, not enough people do enough research when it comes to growing themselves. But yeah, I love it. I absolutely love the business part.
I never, until you were just talking about it, I never noticed the parallels with literally everything of being in a cover band. And I've always said that aspiring musicians should play in a cover band first. And when I play with people who have never done that, there is so many more demands, like you said, of doing a sketch a day and having, if you have a backlog of commissions,
yeah,
and you're being forced to rise up to this new level,
yeah,
you eventually find out who you are within that.
Absolutely.
And it's a better version of had you just like blindly like ignored all the masters. Like, I'm not going to listen to anything Pink Floyd did.
Because I want to be me.
I'm me. And then you end up writing like a Pink Floyd song, ripping it off note for note because you've never heard it and you don't even know.
You know, it's so funny too, because like the brain, right? The brain is a computer. So what does it do? It takes in information and it spews out us, right? We come out. We are the people that we have taken in data since we were small, and slowly with that data, we have been creating ourselves as people, our personalities, you know, whatever. So it's the exact same thing with when you are creating something. You're going to see something. You're going to see, let's say, an elephant, maybe a picture of an elephant if you're an artist, or you're going to see something that someone else has already created if you aren't working with elephants, or if you are. Or like a good example for elephants is Dumbo, the movie Dumbo, where he gets wasted and the pink elephants start going everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And they start like dancing around and like he's just like tripping on this fucking, like, it's a great show. Seeing that scene would inspire so many more artists to do something with it. And it's like taking something that someone's created because the brain is taking in data and then seeing how we can alter it and make it our own. Even if you were to take that same scene, or if I were to describe it and then describe it to a bunch of artists, they would all have their own perspective on it. They would all come out with something different, even with something, a basic of that description. So it's about the brain taking in more information and then constructing a new idea based on all these different inspirations. Because once they're in our head, it's limitless. I can take a little bit of Salvador Dali's painting, an image that he kind of created that had meaning to him, and then use that same meaning for my painting. So maybe I'm going to add a melting, I don't know, we'll say a melting plate. And people are going to see that as a reference to him and are going to know what his meaning is. And now I've added it to mine, and maybe I'm altering its meaning or I'm amplifying it. But now I'm creating something completely different that wouldn't have been created had I not taken some of him. Maybe I'm also doing it with a little bit of, I don't know, Warhol's work. I'm combining these artists through my lens and through the way I want to present it. So I think to blind yourself is to have no data, is to not be able to reach for anything because your brain hasn't been able to kind of make those branches towards those new ideas. You're not feeding me data, so how can I create type thing? Like, I don't have the information, so how can I, if I don't have a recipe, how can I create kind of whatever I'm baking or whatever, right? I can try figuring it out, but the more information I have, I think the better it goes, or the quicker I'll get to that solution. That's how I see it. So I'm very open to seeing more artists and like more people's creations.
That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, more people should do cover bands.
more cover bands, more sketching of
absolutely
things.
Because like it also builds a work ethic, right? The more you're forced to do something all the time.
And I have this page in my sketchbook where I tried to draw Homer Simpson, and 2 of them look okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like really trying.
Wait,
from, like,
are they the
from a
first
picture.
2 or are they like the last 2? Like, did you start real good and then you
And
kept
it
going?
got worse
Yeah.
as I tried to like
You're like, I'm gonna do
analyze
it.
it
Yeah.
more.
You start breaking it down.
And then I look up the video of Matt Groening doing it with his eyes closed. You've seen that?
Yeah. I mean, it's his own character, so
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be
He's
very-
drawn him how many times?
yeah, it'd be more surprising if he couldn't do it, because like
Maybe,
yeah.
Yeah, like if it looked worse than mine.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, if they took the time, could be very good artists, even just to start. And because like art, when you start, it's all about, at least the way I see it, it's all about measurements, right? Distances between, like proportions, I should say. So like if you're drawing a face, the thing that people don't really grasp is the proportions. You can draw a decent face if you just get the proportions right. Like really basic stuff like the eye, for example, regardless on how big you draw the eye, usually the same amount of, like, let's say it's a circle, it'll be the same distance between both eyes. So it'll be 3 circles, which would keep your like pretty symmetric. And it's like certain basic measurements. If you just like map out the face, I feel like people lose themselves with that. They'll focus too much on like one eye, and then they'll lose like how big it should be compared to the next one.
I was actually joking about that. There's a venue in Guelph called Jimmy Jazz.
Yeah.
Very cool bar. I was playing there with Zero Fire 2 weekends ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And there's this table where all the university kids just draw on, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I was just like, there's a lot of very, very good single eyes.
Right? Because I'm telling you, it's because people don't like they don't know the distance between the next eye.
Or like which way the pupil is supposed to go, or
yeah, I feel like if you sit down, just map it out, I mean, it'll look much better than if you try to just guess.
freehand it,
Yeah.
spend 25 minutes on like
Yeah.
the 1 square inch of the picture, and then realize you have the rest of the face to go, and you're already tired of
Yup.
drawing.
Yep, that's I think it was one of the first things they taught at Sheridan, art fundamentals, like life drawing. It's like, make sure you measure out your goddamn model before you put him on the paper. You want to start with the really amazing head, and then you get to torso, and then you realize the legs aren't going to fit. And then the whole thing you can't hand that in because it's not on the page. It doesn't fit. So they teach you from like, and I think it's because they're trying to get everyone at the same level before they keep moving them up. Make sure everyone knows the basics.
Well,
So-
it's almost embarrassing as an institution if
Yeah.
like someone graduates and they're like, "Hey, I graduated from this place. Look at my art," and
Yeah,
you're like, "Ugh."
that's true. That's true. And you know what I noticed too, though, a lot of artists, they go there and they realize that art actually has standards, which they're not used to, kind of facing. Like they're very used to like anything is art, everything is art. You can't criticize it because it's art, but art actually has a lot of standards,
yeah.
proportion, color, like color theory. The way you look at something, the way something should be balanced on like even photography, like the rule of 9 or like the grid, right? Just because like that's what makes the most sense, or even like the way we view things, the eye naturally. Of course, you can break all those rules, and if you're really talented, you could create something amazing. But
And you can challenge it under
absolutely,
certain grounds.
exactly.
And if someone
exactly.
goes like, "This breaks this, this, and this rule," and then
Yes.
you can say, "But I did
But
that
why?
and that on purpose," or
That's it. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Like a lot of new artists, it's like if you know the rules, then you know how to properly break them to the most effective way, right? If you understand color theory, then you like. I was talking with someone recently, and I was like, we were at like an art battle, and they had put like a drop sheet with a bunch of like color splattered everywhere, right? And I was telling them like, the more control you have over your medium, the more impact you can have. And I pointed at like the drop sheet there was there, and I said like that drop sheet, it was super busy with all these colors, right? So if I wanted to get your attention, I would have to try incredibly hard to make something visually appealing because you have all these colors already there, right? Your eyes visually it's loud. Like your eye is so busy trying to look at all these things that it's a lot of information, right? But if I control that, or if I played to those strengths, I could really make an impact. So for example, if I had a drop sheet with all these gray lines, like pinstripes, and then one was red, so that would be the rule that's being broken, right? That's the difference. And now that means something. Now I'm creating a division that you won't forget that red line, even though it's like all the other pinstripes. And I saw the same thing with like the splatter. If I made one perfectly round white circle, suddenly I'm adding a contrast, a meaning. Suddenly I'm showing the importance in the splatter by the importance in the white circle, because it is the complete opposite. It is the rule that's being broken. It is the difference, right? But if you don't know how to break these things, if you just kind of, it looks nice to you, then if you yourself don't understand what's happening, it's even harder for like an audience to grasp it. Because your archer, at the end of the day, you should be trying to communicate something, either an emotion or a story or something through your work. Otherwise, it's just like noise, visual noise, or even like with music, right? It needs to be organized. Otherwise, it's just noise.
Yeah. There's this band called Art Ensemble of Chicago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 4 or 5 of like the greatest jazz musicians in the world making like just fucked up noises.
Perfect.
with like items. Like there's one track where each of them has like a Jack in the Box, and they like crank them at different speeds, and then there's just like a drummer kind of jamming to what's going on.
That's deep.
And it is it's like anti-music, like an anti-joke. When you see those memes that are like memes back in 2007, and you see like Victory Kid like, ate a hot dog wearing a white shirt, didn't get any on it, right? To now, like when you walk in and it's like a 2-legged cat with like this for its legs, and it's like memes in 2018.
Wow.
And it's like, that's like, once you've heard all the punchlines, the new punchline is the farthest thing from a punchline.
Yeah. That's great. You gotta have some control over what you're doing. So it's like if you build a style, people start seeing you a specific way, or hearing, like it's the same thing with music. If you have a specific style and then you suddenly break that, or you make it interesting by introducing something new, or taking it somewhere where people won't expect it, then I think that's when you're really starting to break ground. It's like you set the stage, and then you do the cliffhangers, and then you present.
I think it's like burning off the deadwood too, in a sense that like those are those fans that you lose in that process. Like, you're weak.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Get out of here.
Yeah. No.
You can't handle what's next. If you couldn't handle that.
Yeah. That's very true. That's why I don't care too much about like what happens on like my social media in terms of like if it gets great feedback or not. The only like I care about it in a business sense, because then I understand what the type of images that work or don't work. But again, that's business. If I put up a painting and nobody likes it, but I really enjoy it because I have some experimenting that took me somewhere that my other pieces hadn't, and only I can see that in the piece, then I'm happy with it. I'm very, very happy with it. Regardless on whether people see it as good or bad, or whether they like it or not. Because it's my journey that I'm just allowing you to see.
Do you find that, like, does all of your stuff look like Dope Chief's art? Or is there stuff you've got where you're like, let's see if I can do some Da Vinci-esque sketches or whatever. Yeah. Like, is there stuff that, that you don't necessarily share because it wouldn't go with the themes you're trying to present?
I think earlier, like when I was doing, like maybe like about 3 years ago when I was doing more fan stuff, I would sketch in different mediums. And I find that I do different work in different mediums. I like to do more realistic stuff if I'm doing oils, like more portraits. Like I would love to do portraits, like people's faces, but working with oil, like it itself is very time consuming, and you have to be very patient with it. But yeah, there's a lot of different stuff that I have, like a lot of pencil and pen just like ink drawings that like would not seem like I did them. Like they aren't with like the style that I'm trying to build. But more recently, like at least in the last year, I tried to do everything that's within the universe that I'm trying to create, simply because it's keeping me within that realm, but also it's allowing me to grow that dimension, that universe that I'm trying to paint, but give it more depth by introducing characters and different styles, or trying to expand different things, and not just doing paintings. So more recently, not as much. Before, yeah, I definitely had a lot more stuff that was out there. I don't know if you ever saw like this Ice Cube photo with him holding like an AK.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that as a painting, and instead of a AK, like it's a realistic painting. So it's like, looks just like the photo. I hope. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty close. Except the AK is a water gun, like a Nerf water gun. Like it's an orange.
Super Soaker.
Super Soaker. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. And I just loved the contrast in the image. An image that looks very aggressive and very, very strong, contrast to a very playful thing. And I was going to do a series of those. Like I had done one of the more, and by the way, that painting, I was very fortunate enough that the guy who owns Poke on Concession, and so he started at the farmer's market. And
there's still one.
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, he expanded it a bit.
Cool.
That guy purchased the piece and he has it in his living room. So I was happy about that. One of the more extreme pieces in that series that I was going to do, it was basically, I was going to take photos of war, photos that had historic meaning. And then if there were weapons in it, I was going to change it to water guns or like something along the lines. And one of the pieces was it was like I think it was like a beheading. It was a photo of people who were about to be beheaded, and it was the exact same thing. Everything was like as the picture was, except the people who were about to be beheaded, the prisoners, they were all toys. There was like a Barbie, there was like a toy soldier, and the meaning, like I had a meaning behind that, like that related to my personal life in terms of things. Like my brother would, like when I was younger, he would break my toys. Like he would just snap the heads off for no, like I don't know why he did. Like my older brother, he was always kind of a dick when we were growing up. But like
that's their job, I think.
Yeah, right. And I remember that moment having such a impact on my life as a kid, right? Like as a kid, such something that isn't really that important would mean so much, right? And I remember I always like had a great relationship with my toys. I loved my toys. I loved telling stories with my toys, like my own stories, coming up with my own dog, like kids do, right? And then coming home to this massacre of my toys all missing their heads. It was such a strong moment, a strong emotion I felt. And it was that relationship I had with that contrast of the image. But like that type of work, you will never see, like, because it's not stuff that I don't think I'll ever put together. And it's not stuff that like I continued to explore. My work went somewhere completely different. Even that painting itself, I think I ended up painting over it.
You painted over it?
Yeah.
Just like, sure. I need a canvas right now.
Yeah. No, yeah, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. Because in my studio, the way I see it is like, if it's sitting here, it's not making me money and no one else is appreciating it. So it's got to go. Yeah.
There's my all-time favorite artist is Picasso.
Yeah.
And
what is it you love about Picasso?
So many things. For one, the fact that he was consistently reinventing himself.
Yeah.
The fact that he was a master. Like the thing that people critique him on most often is like, oh, why can't he draw real people? It's like when you look at all his work from before he was 22.
This guy mastered oil painting at like 13.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you got to tell people. It's like he was done with fucking classical painting by the time he reached his teens.
He maxed out that skill tree.
Yeah, like he got bored
when he was a teenager.
He freaked out. I'm pretty sure he freaked out. I wasn't there, but like I heard that he was very upset when like the invention of photography came, because he's like, what the hell's the point of painting now if you can just take a picture?
He had an existential crisis.
Exactly, because he was really good at that, right? So that's how he thought he was going to make his money, doing portraits. But like photography just like came onto the scene. It's like this new technology. So the push of that technology made him to be like, all right, well then what the hell's the point of art? So then you got to re-examine art. What is it? And now it took him to that kind of place of like breaking it all down into forms and kind of the different directions he ended up going to. But that's interesting because like he's always reinvented himself. That to me sounds more like a businessman than it does necessarily an artist. Seeing the market, seeing where you fit, seeing what's there, what isn't, and then where can I go from here, right? That's business.
Well, that's what I got to Picasso from, because what you said about if it's sitting in the studio, it's not making me money. There's this thing that Picasso said that for a young artist, the most important thing is to be selling your work. You're always turning over.
You know why that works on so many levels? Because it means you're constantly need to be making new stuff.
Yeah.
It means you're getting out of that comfort zone. So many artists have this very, very romantic look on what art is. And I think it's because art essentially boils down to being a very personal thing, it comes from you, right? It's very personal to your experience. And usually we paint or we create things that are from our experiences, right? So when you now telling people that or that I tell people that you should look at it more as a product, I'm saying that not because I want to bring its value down, but because when you start looking at it as a product, you start seeing that it's a commodity that people either need, or you need to show them that they need it or why they need it. And there's so many good reasons for this. People we feel better when we're working. So if you're constantly creating things and you're working on your own stuff, if you're moving it, that means, you got to make more stuff, right? And if you're not moving it, it's not working. Try something else. If you want to grow that same style, stay with it, right? But the point is, keep making stuff. It's not like if it's not working, stop it. No, it's try something else. But keep making stuff. Keep making new things. Even if shit doesn't sell, make something new, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And then that's why it worked for him, because you have to keep trying new things and do something that people haven't seen before, I guess. By the way, his coffee's great.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm starting to feel it a bit. I'm getting I got a wave. Fantastic.
Of caffeine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very strong coffee.
Yeah.
It's keeping me going.
Yeah, shout out to Lena at the farmer's market for supplying.
Did she say
coffee.
where she got her coffee beans?
This is from Costa Rica. It's a 60-40 blend of dark to medium.
It's very
Rican beans.
I was gonna say it's very smooth. It doesn't have that strong taste.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I'm enjoying it.
Ooh, cartoons. I just write a bunch of single words,
and then
sometimes they help.
That's great. That's great though. I like that.
Sometimes they don't.
Because if you just keywords, I think work better than direct questions. Direct questions are so what's the answer to this? But when you just present a topic, it's all right,
yeah,
let's dive into the topic of cartoons.
And I found on the last podcast, I didn't look at it until the end, and then when I scanned it, I had only left off one or two of the 13 things, and I wasn't even guiding the conversation in any way.
Yeah, it just naturally.
It's just it's naturally And it makes sense because it's what you're trying to present to people that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's obviously where my questions are coming from.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some curveballs here or there, but for the most part, if you talk long enough, eventually you cover
most of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I haven't been utilizing my soundboard enough. Yeah, exactly.
What else you got?
I got this.
That's great.
Yeah, that's not a good one. We got to change that vibe. Rewind.
Oh, God.
Okay. No crickets.
I need some more coffee. We need some more coffee for that one.
Yeah, so we were talking about, while we were making the coffee, Batman Beyond. Yeah. Amazing storyline. One thing I don't think I've ever even seen in your art is a superhero type character.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever spend time on those? Is that something that's never interested you, or in terms of just drawing it. Obviously, you watch the cartoons.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have such a disconnection with heroes and that world of superheroes. I don't know. I feel like it's not something I necessarily enjoy. I can't really get into like the storylines too much or like relate to them. It's just a relation thing. I think it comes down to like, I don't know. I just don't.
I find Superman to be the worst superhero.
Oh, of course, hands down. Like he does it all, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's just like, oh, you can't
get out of our
kill him.
planet
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, exactly.
We get it. You're immortal. Leave.
Oh, the yellow sun makes you so strong. It's just the biggest pussy on Krypton.
Right? Well, there's
He was
no
just giving him
Krypton.
wedges and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's I don't know. I think I don't. Yeah, I never related to them enough to be, and like they're so not difficult to draw, but I don't know where to take it. Like, what the hell am I going to do with like a Batman? I don't know. I just don't. Like, I don't see the joy in it. That's like, for me, that's like even very, very difficult to do as like fan art, just because I don't enjoy it at all.
Spider-Man was always my favorite superhero because Spider-Man is almost like this, like the action elements of Spider-Man are like the cherry on top, but you relate to Peter Parker, who's this kid who's,
absolutely.
having a hard time making friends at school, can't,
He's the nerdy kid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I really liked. I was always into like Wolverine. Wolverine was great.
Oh, Wolverine's badass.
Bishop was Canadian too.
He is Canadian. Wolverine's Canadian.
Is he dead now? Is he old?
Deadpool's Canadian. Yeah, Wolverine is dead. All of
Was it the old age?
with them. Well, I think.
Or did
spoiler alert again in the Wolverine
world?
Movie. He
Wait,
he
Wolverine
gets
movie
killed.
or Logan movie?
Logan, yeah.
Oh.
Which
How does-
could have been great. That movie could have been great.
You're saying it's not. You're saying it's bad.
No, I'm saying it's
What do you say?
very good,
Okay.
but it could have been amazing, and it's kind of upsetting to see them take these like weird turns and fall into these weird plot holes and fail to develop the characters in certain ways. Like there's this character played by the guy from Narcos, like the main DEA agent.
Okay. Yeah.
And the movie starts off with Logan like waking up. It's in this like kind of like weird future where you don't know what happened, but Logan is a limo driver.
Okay.
And these like Latin Kings type, like, Mexican
Cartel,
gangbangers, are like trying to steal the rims off of his limo.
Okay.
And without batting an eyelash, he just like kills all of them.
Nice.
Right. And then later,
Equal punish. That's suitable for trying to take someone's rims. Death sentence.
I think I think they escalate. I think he was like, please don't take my rims. And then they were like, what are you going to do about it?
Okay.
And then,
So
and then he's like, I'm going to get shot and not die and then kill you.
I feel like you didn't even have to kill him. You just show him that you can't die, and that's kind of
I have metal claws.
Please shoot me, and then you just stand there and it's like, okay, please go.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't want to make a mess.
No, but movie bad guys are never smart.
No, they're not. No, they're not. You're right.
Like, obviously, it's a series of bad decisions that leads you to the place where,
To that bad life where you're meeting.
where you're thug
A
number
mutant.
3. So you're obviously you don't have the greatest decision making processes, but when you see thugs number 1 and 2 get fucking disarmed and like get their necks broken, just run. Man.
At
There's
that
no
point,
shame.
Start thinking about maybe becoming an electrician. Or
Take up a trade.
Yeah, start thinking
Yeah.
about trades just in that moment. Like, I bet you there's a lot of people who need plumbers.
Yeah.
As your friend's neck's being,
It's not as glamorous.
No, it's not, but at least you don't have to worry about your spine being broken by
Yeah.
a mutant.
So they develop Logan as this like really ruthless character.
Yeah.
And then when they
Clearly.
introduce this really, really ruthless character,
You mean it gets
Like-
worse?
the main bad guy,
What does he do?
right?
What would make him worse than that? That's pretty.
Well, the bad guy, like, he's like hunting mutants or something like that, and he's made it clear that he's, not, he has the worst of intentions for Logan on like a really sadistic level, not like, hey, you're stopping me from taking these rims. And he lets him get away like 3 times.
Logan lets the guy get away.
Yeah, exactly.
But he didn't. But the guys who took his were going to take his rims. No mercy. No mercy.
Yeah.
But the main villain.
Yeah. The movie could have been over like 25 minutes in. Should have been over, realistically.
And he said, we have a lot in common.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I've got metal claws. You've got a metal arm.
We're brothers at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how I got on with superheroes.
Well, it's because he's ruthless.
Yeah.
You were saying he was ruthless. They developed him as ruthless.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so, I don't know, man. But it's still a good movie. Good.
You're saying you were saying it could be great. That's how we got onto that.
Exactly.
But it's not.
And deadlines, I guess. That's all.
Deadlines. Yeah.
And like I was talking to you about Gotham, which
Gotham.
is,
Yeah. You what did you say was great for?
If it was in the 90s, I would never miss it because it would have been like the greatest show on. But in the age of Netflix and HBO, it's not good.
I stress in the 90s.
Yeah,
top of the line.
But I'm hooked on it. I've seen every episode, and I forgive everything.
Yeah,
because they make 22 45-minute episodes a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
That's a movie every other week.
Yeah.
So, like, any plot holes, any bad dialogue,
they can
forgiven
easily,
instantly.
Yeah, they've given you a lot of content to go through. Yeah, no, I can never relate to them, I guess. I just didn't have, I don't know, I wasn't really interested in them. I guess as a kid I was. I like I like the contrast of using cartoons though, like really classic looking cartoons or elements of cartoons where it's very, very simple drawings, because they're kind of universal at this point. I feel like classic cartoons, or at least the style. I
see that kind of old Disney and even like pre-Disney style pop up. I meant to ask you about like your character. I feel like I've seen you refer to him as Dope Chief, or as the Chief, but it's also you. So is the character a personification of yourself? So
no one really knows what the character is. I've never really talked about what the character is or what its importance is. And the reason for that was mainly because a part of me was still building a lot of the elements behind it. Again, what I'm essentially trying to do is build a universe. So build an entire world, and then that way, essentially trying to create a stage, and then that way I can narrate the story. And my goal is eventually to be able to have enough elements in a story so that when people view my paintings, they'll be able to kind of read them. So you'll be able to read my paintings based on certain icons or the way things are placed, if you know about my work. So there's still been doing that has led me to kind of think things through a little more, the way I want to present them in the future. So that way I haven't necessarily made things definitive, but I've been slowly kind of seeing the things that I do constantly and then presenting them as like tools or things. I'll do halos. I do a lot of white halos or black halos, and they're kind of like, they look almost like smoke rings. Yeah. And it's because they are smoke rings. Like, it's not a halo, but it's always above the head. And it means it's usually an indication of how much, if I do, spoiler alert, the Dope Chief smokes weed. Sometimes I do it. But it'll mean that for me in the painting, it'll signify whether I had smoked during the painting or whether the character himself is experiencing some sort of high, which would change their narrative of the story. Again, it depends on how the smoke ring is drawn. Like, I even have different ways of drawing it, depending on what I'm trying to tell within the narrative of the visual. Because I think having these small things that build up into a larger story will eventually help tell the stories I want to tell without me being here. So I'm thinking once I'm dead and these paintings are around, I want people to still be able to understand what's going on without me having to be there. I want you to be able to see what I was trying to get you to see, or the story that's kind of being told behind it. So that way there's something else happening. Whether it's a setup. I love paintings like that. Like there's a few paintings like that are classical paintings that they depict a moment in time, either right before something happens or like right after, something very traumatic. And it's just that moment that you see, that knowing the narrative will change it. And there's one painting in particular. It's a very classic, a huge painting. It's a classical style painting, and it's the wreck of something, and it's basically it was a shipwreck, and there was like 12 people that survived, and they were on this giant plaque of wood just floating in the ocean. And at one point they saw I think it was a larger ship, and the painting depicts everyone kind of like waving the larger ship down, and you see like people's excitement, and they're all like starving, and at this point they had killed other people to like eat or like throw off the boat or throw off the piece of wreckage. But that painting depicts the moment they see salvation, the moment they see a ship after being lost at sea for so long, except it doesn't, because that ship never gets to them. So it doesn't see them, and they end up stranded anyway. And more, I think people died before. Only a few made it, or they all got lost. But I'm pretty sure a few made it because they had told the story of how a ship passed them. But it's that false hope that it's depicting because it's so strong. It looks like hope. It looks like there's a lot of emotion behind it.
Wow.
But they don't get saved, right?
I want to see if I can find that.
Yeah,
I'd like
it's
to
the wreck.
Look at what you're talking
It's the
about.
wreckage of, or it's the wreckage of something. And I remember, so speaking about work that I don't do much of, I took that painting, and what I actually did was I put a really far, tall McDonald's sign, like they're signaling towards the McDonald's again, like signifying falsehood or like false hope. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
That's the one?
I think
It's
so.
the wreck of the Medusa.
Yes, and I think the ship's depicted in the one that they're trying to wave down. No, you know what I did for that one? I put a giant Wi-Fi sign up, and they all had laptops or smartphones that had no Wi-Fi. So they all look like, see how they look like they're like, kind of like, now picture like phones in their hand or like iPads, because that's what I
Yeah.
did with that one.
Just like, so like they're
looking
their
for the
suffering
signal.
is to not have
Wi-Fi
access,
which
to
is
the-
like a modern day.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did
Oh,
with that. But
man.
that's like work again, the type of stuff I don't do now. But like I loved exploring contrast ideas of some like an important moment that is depicting boiled down to something that we see as like super important, which is like always staying connected. And I hate exploring cliche like topics like that, so it's not work I present really. But I still think exploring topics like that is important just to get the brain going in different directions, because you might not know where it ends up, but your brain might do something with it later. Not necessarily everything comes at once, right? Sometimes it takes longer for us to digest ideas and then come back to it. We have epiphanies about stuff.
Have you ever painted something and then spent so long on it that you started to hate it, and then you like put it away, and then you came back to it and you're like, oh shit, this is actually pretty good?
Yeah. I can't say I have. Like usually if I start hating something, I just hate it. Like I don't ever come back to it and like it. And it's because, and it's something that I've been trying to work from myself to stop doing, which is when I'm painting something, I'll see something within the painting that I did that I'm like, I'm okay with that. Like that's okay. I'm okay the way I did that. And I move on to something else. And then when I'm later analyzing the entire painting, I remember that one spot and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. But like, to me, it's already a fault within my work that I'm already seeing that I'm okay with, which I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be okay with it. It should be perfect the way I want it, because I need to make sure the story at the end is going to be presented exactly the way I see it. So what I end up I need to stop doing is like kind of seeing parts that I'm just okay with, or stuff that like I let go kind of, and like going back and fixing it completely. And sometimes that means I'll do like an entire figure, and like it'll be like a pretty large figure, and I'm like, you know what, I actually don't like that. And my brain's trying to convince the other part of my brain that no, it works. And I'm like, the second I decide it doesn't work, I'm always going to see it as it not working, because my brain already knows why it's not working. Like the composition of that character is just too far. It doesn't balance out. And then the other part of my brain's like, no, it's okay. Like, it's not that bad. But because I've already spotted it, whenever I see that work anywhere, I'm always going to remember that. So sometimes it means putting works away, coming back to it and seeing it and being like, fuck, I have to remove that, and then starting over on a part. And that takes so much more time, right? Or like just basically repainting it. So it's about accepting that we're going to go places in our work, go there, accept it, hate it, but then change it. Don't just accept it and leave it. If you feel like it's going to be something you want to present, change it. Take the time to fix it. So it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of making sure I edit things the second I know I'm not going to be okay with it, instead of trying to convince myself down the line, because then I'm never going to value the work the way I would if I, like, there are works that I have, more recent works that I'm like, I personally can just look at and really enjoy the way I did things, because I know I took the time to really map it out and see it the way I want to see it. So that way there isn't any part of the painting that I'm like, everything's great except that corner, or, you know, everything could have been better if I did this. It's about, this is the final state of this piece. I'm very happy with the way it came out, so I'm good. If it sells, great. If not, then I'm going to redo it. I'm going to make something else.
Paint over.
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of paint to use? I think you don't really fuck with watercolor that I'm aware of.
No, not that you're aware of. I have, but again, it's like stuff. If you ever come down to my studio,
I'd love to.
Which I'm not far from you, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
I'm literally like 2 minutes.
Oh,
I'm off of Delaware, like the Life Surf Factory.
Oh yeah,
yeah, really, really close.
oh, dope.
I could have. There's actually a store. I think this is Halton's back there, right? There's a store on Main called Cool Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great place. I go there for a lot of inspiration.
Really?
Too. Oh yeah. He sells vintage toys from like the 40s all the way to like now. If you had toys in the 90s, you'll find it there.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
Just around the corner.
Yeah, it's not far. I like going there to find pieces that inspire like works that I'm trying to do. But what were we talking about? We're talking about studio, and then I mentioned mediums. Yeah, not that you're aware of, because I don't. If I paint, I like to paint with acrylic, because I'm not patient enough to do oil, and oil is very expensive compared to, well, actually oil is just as expensive as the acrylic I'm using now. So I switched my paint to a different brand, because I wanted to do higher quality work. And I hate to say it because it sucks, but like there is a noticeably large difference in the paint quality.
Just smoother.
It's higher pigment density, which means they put more color basically in like whatever base they use. So if it's the acrylic base, then they'll put more pigment in it. So that means that when I'm doing a stroke, it's the thinner that stroke gets, right? Because you start with a glop of paint on, let's say, the canvas. The thinner that stroke gets, the more of the color underneath is going to pop, right? Well, with this, it holds its color the further it goes. Like, it holds that color pretty far. So that color stays very, very vibrant.
Does it dry differently?
Nope. It's the exact same as pretty much any acrylic I've used. The only difference is the pigment density. It's like the same paint. Have you ever seen like Coz's work?
I might have.
Coz does a lot of huge, large scale pop culture work. Super, super, super vibrant. But if you look at his paintings,
COZ?
KAWS.
KAWS. Way off.
KAWS.
Ooh. Okay, yeah.
He uses the same, so it's the same paint that he uses, and it's far more expensive than the stuff I was using before, and it's called it's golden paint, I believe. It's Golden.
The brand is Golden?
Yeah, the brand's called Golden. They released another one called Golden Open Air or something like that, which is like, it just has a longer drying time. Like it takes longer for it to dry out. So it acts more like an acrylic a bit. Or
That's
oil.
crazy. That looks like a world you could just fall into.
Right.
Oh,
and the
man.
reason it works so well is because look how strong that color comes through. Like it's just color.
Very, yeah.
And
it's
imagine
like there's
standing
no-
in front of that. Like that thing's, seeing it that scale is one thing, but like seeing it the size of a wall, that color is overpowering.
Yeah, there's no variation to like a block. It's not like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like paint.
Yeah.
It looks like just like a
Graphic,
cartoon.
yep.
Like,
Yeah. Well, that artist, he was an animator before, and like he was big, I believe, at like doing street art in the early 2000s. Yeah, but like a lot of his stuff is very, very vibrant, and it's all very high, like fine art, but it's all very based on pop culture. So like he uses a lot of known elements and uses them for his work, but again, the quality of paint has made a huge difference. So I hate that it has, because I was hoping, it was just like, not that
you
noticeable.
want to be like, oh, it's, it's not the paint, it's what you do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
But
then you're like, oh, fuck.
no,
this is
it's
so much
definitely
better.
the paint. Yeah, it's definitely the damn paint. It's one of those things, though. Like, I'm not gonna say it's not, or I'm not. If you notice a difference, sometimes, it just means you got to spend a little more on that and find cheaper things other places. Like instead of buying canvases, now I'm trying to make my own like wooden panels, which is so much cheaper, but it's its own process, right?
It's time consuming.
Yeah, but the great thing about that is I will now be able to make 5 by 6 feet pieces at a fraction of the cost of a canvas. A canvas like that large would cost me hundreds of dollars, and then to ship it would be crazy,
Right, because you couldn't just buy it locally, most likely.
Exactly, right. As opposed to like a flat board, I can it's thinner, so I can ship it easier if I do need to send it out to someone, and I can make it any size I want, right? Like I can build it so I could put 2 boards, make a frame at the back. So now it's a wall piece, and it's stuff you get at Home Depot for like $20. You get like one of a huge board, the boards that I'm using for like, I don't know what the name is. It's like almost like a plywood, but has like a nice finish. For like $24, you get a giant piece.
Oh man, there's something I want to read you.
Yeah.
I have to find it first.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. Oh, that was faster than I thought it was. I'm gonna like take the mic off the stand, read this like beat poetry. But it's really more like, it's just like a tweet someone made or something like that from a recording artist, obviously. I thought using loops was cheating. The guy's a drummer, right? I thought using loops was cheating, so I programmed my own using samples. I then thought using samples was cheating, so I recorded real drums. Then I thought that programming was cheating, so I learned to play drums for real. I then thought using I then thought using bought drums was cheating, so I learned to make my own. I then thought using pre-made skins was cheating, so I killed a goat and skinned it. I then thought that was cheating too, so I grew my own goat from a baby goat. So
From a baby goat. Oh my God.
I also think that's cheating, but I'm not sure where to go from here. I haven't made any music lately, what with all the goat farming and all.
So he became a goat farmer.
And I think about that all the time because, as you can see with the recording setup that now I'm using for a podcast, I just started teaching myself this to record my own music.
Yeah.
And, every time you hit a thing where, you could pay someone to do it or you could buy it,
Yeah.
or I can learn how to
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
it.
I think that's great until you get to that point where
Yeah.
you're raising goats. I think you got to know that line.
Yeah.
Like, at what point am I losing money by making this, or is it I need to just buy it?
It's hard to know the line though. It's because it's like
I think somewhere between
I'd say-
raising a goat.
learning to play the drums. That's great.
Yeah.
And
I
then-
think for me, it's definitely how long that it takes to develop a skill.
Yeah.
Right. And like, how much do I really care about developing that skill? Because like for me, building canvases, I see the potential in that because I can scale up. Right. But like, would I go and like try finding the wood to like make these boards? I feel like that's, yeah, you know what I mean? I feel like I wouldn't be getting much value in return.
Like a little tree farm.
Yeah, it growing a tree farm.
Growing your own trees.
Yeah. I'll start making paintings when I'm 50 and these trees are developed enough for me to
Yeah.
make frames. They're mature enough. Yeah, no, I think once the skill is, it outweighs the end goal, maybe look into paying someone. Like, I don't think I'd want to experiment with making my own pigments to the sense of like, let me go find a pigment in nature.
Have you ever?
Let me go grind some beetles. Let me raise the beetles first.
Is that a real?
That's how they used to make pigments.
Oh,
Yeah, certain beetles made certain pigments when they dried out. Or like I know there was a specific type of blue that you could only get it by harvesting a specific type of worm, I believe. And you had to dry it in the sun, but at a very specific amount of time. Because if you left it too long, the pigment would get too dark and you wouldn't get that pigment anymore. And if you took it off too, like if it wasn't dried enough, you wouldn't reach that pigment that you were going for. It was a very specific color, which became very expensive to put in paintings. So like, or for example, purple. The reason it's associated with royalty is because in paintings, it's very difficult to make that pigment. In nature, it's not found easily. So only royalty or like very rich people would have paintings with the color purple in it back in the day, because like certain pigments aren't easy to find. So then that was almost a way of seeing how someone's wealth, right? It's like what colors were in your portrait.
Wow.
What pigments people were using. So again, it's like telling more about the story, about the person without even having to say it, right? Instead of drawing bags of money everywhere, it's like what colors are in your painting. It's like a subtle thing.
The bags of money are all brown. It's like, yeah, you broke ass. You don't.
Exactly. There's no purple in your painting. You're very cheap.
I'm standing in an empty room that's entirely purple.
Purple. Wow. Yeah, exactly. So
I've never even given a second of thought to how
artists used to get pigments.
Yeah, like in the
like the masters.
pre-industrial
Think
era.
about the masters. Like you had to go out in nature, find anything that had color, and see if you could dry it out, make it into a powder, because like certain things would, once they're like, you know, you take out the water out of it and it dries out, it might not have the same pigment
not
as
that
it
color
did. Yeah.
anymore.
So then like other things might turn other colors. So then like you had to figure that out. Because like now, think about it, you have a luxury. I want to make a painting with the sun in it and it's going to have a blue sky. I'm going to the store, I'm getting the specific blue I want or the specific yellow. There's like a bunch of yellows now, bunch of blues, blah, blah, blah. Back then, it's like, I want to paint the sun. The hell am I getting yellow? Where am I finding yellow in nature? Or like, where am I finding blue in nature? Like, where the hell am I going to go get that?
Blueberries don't even squish blue.
No, they don't. And then you dry them out. They're what are you getting out of that?
Yeah.
And then what are you mixing? What oil? Where are you getting your oils? And how long are they going to last? How long does it take for them to dry? Like it was a lot of experimenting. Like it was not straightforward to make paintings back then. That's why like there's even that level of like, okay, you had to have the skill of painting, but then where the hell are you getting all this stuff? Where are you getting your canvases? Can you make frames? Are you transporting all your paint somewhere to paint like a landscape? Like all this like your brushes, you know, are you making brushes? Like,
do you ever buy cheap brushes and just kind of give them a haircut or?
Yeah. Brushes, I actually go through brushes quite quickly. Like if it's like a very fine, small brush, it'll maybe last me like a couple weeks, but they just don't last that long. So brushes are one of those things like with like one of those items that if you can find them cheap, just get them cheap and like use them for what they're worth. And then if you can recycle the wood from them or do something, don't just toss them out. They should be fine. Like certain things aren't going to last forever. Brushes, you use them so often. Like and then I use chemicals to clean it or like whatever I used to clean it. I put pressure on them. to every time I have to take paint off it, I'm like rubbing it on something. So like the bristles get destroyed so quickly. So they don't last. I don't have like a special paintbrush that I use or anything like that. Just buy new ones weekly, bi-weekly.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the one.
And we're back. You don't know that we were gone, but now you do.
Yeah.
I do this every time where I try to do a slick edit, and then I'm like, just kidding. I'm going to derail the flow of this podcast for a minute. Acknowledge
You snitch
that we
on
took
yourself,
a break.
eh?
I can't.
You can't help it.
I cannot tell a lie.
Yeah.
So
What were we discussing?
I was going to ask you about your workflow. Like,
Yeah.
You're full time with your art.
No,
Right
I used
now?
to be.
You've
Yeah, it's been about a year, a little less than a year. I used to be full time in art, and it was okay. It's definitely a struggle, I think, for anyone, not as an artist, but anyone who's trying to grow a business, can relate to trying to grow something and the struggle and trying to make it work, because there's no direct path, right, with trying to make a success of anything. So it's trying to figure out how to make things grow, and then kind of go in those directions. And what was happening with me was that the work that I was producing was just enough to get by. So I was able to create enough to pay my bills, not be okay. I was all right. But that didn't allow me to grow. It didn't allow me to kind of try new things, work on new projects, because when you just make it enough, you don't really have enough to invest in other things, right? You're just kind of sustaining. So it was about a year ago or so, I started working full time in Brantford as an embroiderer. So we make like sweaters for like McMaster University. They have like the university sweaters. I was embroidering that. So like, it's like working with like industrial machines, something I'd never done before. But I was fortunate enough that this company, they needed people. My friend was working there and he was able to get me in. So I learned that. So I started working full time, meaning I had to be up at like 6, get to work. I'm done work at 4:30, come back from Brantford by 5. I'm home. And then I have from 5 till around 11 it's my free time. So it's 5 hours, roughly about 5 hours, depending on what I'm doing that day, to make art. So it's gone down to the point where now I have to schedule all of my hours. So each hour when I get home is scheduled. So like I get home at 5, I eat for an hour, and then I'll paint for an hour, and then I'll edit for an hour, and then I'll design for an hour or something like that, depending on the day. And it's about learning myself, who I am as a person when it comes to the work I want to do. Like some days I don't want to paint. And like even last week, I was like on Wednesday, I'm like, I really don't want to paint today. And I looked at my schedule, and knowing myself, I had actually not scheduled any paint time that day. I'm like, fuck yeah. Because like it meant I stayed on my own schedule, right? But it meant I was doing other stuff that needs to get done, like updating my website, getting posts ready. There's a lot of other stuff that needs to be done, let alone the actual creating of art. So recently, within the last year, it's been a lot of learning to sacrifice or having to sacrifice other things that are otherwise, you wouldn't want to, or like things that, like hanging out with people, seeing people. I value my weekends so much now, because now it's like any work I can't finish during the week, I have time on the weekend to just like finish a painting, like finalize it, get it ready to post the following week. So that way, that week while I'm working, I don't have to worry about posting anything. Because if you're not consistent with your posts, you lose momentum, and that really hurts business, because that means your posts aren't being seen, you're not getting interactions, blah, 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 blah. So for me, the last year, it's been a lot of scheduling. It's been a lot of learning how to, letting a lot of things go in terms of like even people in my life, like relationships I've had with people, I've had to kind of let go for either reasons of like, they're not helping me grow, I'm not helping them grow. And just to have a friendship just purely on just because we're, you know, we were friends before or whatever, it's not enough anymore for me to justify not doing that over my work, which sounds terrible to an extent, but like at the end, I see it as I need to get to a place where I can go back to doing this full time and be a place where I'm stable on my own. And the relationships that will outlast this time of my life where I'm really kind of at my limit in terms of trying to make things work and not having the time for it. The relationships that will outlast that are, I think, the ones I'll value, because I'm trying to limit my relationships and my engagements with people to people that I can help you. Like if I can help you and I'm going to add value to your life, then I value the friendship.
I think as an adult, you can't be an adult person with like adult problems.
Yeah.
And maintain high maintenance relationships.
It's very true. Isn't
like
it?
Sometimes your friends will need you, and you got to recognize that.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Step up.
Yeah.
But then other times there's like people who are like, we didn't hang out 3
Oh my
weekends
God,
in a row,
right?
and it's like
Yeah.
I don't hang out,
Yeah.
man. I like
And like
if you're a busy person,
yeah,
then it's just like, sorry, man, I don't party like
but
that.
like no, it's true. But like it's that exact same thing. Like before, I was never like that. Before, if you wanted to hang out, I'm like, cool, let's hang out. Like I don't really mind. I was very okay with it. But like, so going from that to suddenly I can't hang out ever, it seems like it's such a harsh, like I'm cutting people out necessarily. Like that's what it seems like. But it's more like, no, before I had no schedule. Before I wasn't doing anything. Like I was working on my art, but not enough that like I was making it happen, because had that been true, I wouldn't have needed to go find something that's stable so that I can do the art thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a lot of that. And like I have a very close group of friends that I've known for a very long time, and we don't hang out all the time, but like we don't lose touch. Like hanging out with them, it's always great, but like we can go a long time without hanging out, and it's totally cool.
You pick up right where you left
Exactly.
off.
And they're like friends I made in high school. I have like 5 very, very close friends, and then a few other people that when I really miss, I'll be like, you know, let's try making time. But for the most part, I've been so lately so focused on trying to really say that I did everything to make it happen, then because it goes back to that thing I was talking with my paintings. If I see one little thing off, I'll never be satisfied with that painting because I left it. So it's the same way at looking at my art career. It's like if I don't try absolutely everything, looking back, I won't be satisfied. If I have tried it all, then I'm good. Then if it doesn't work, oh well, at least I have a job, I'm working, I'm paying my bills. But if it's like, I could have tried that, or maybe I should have went for that, maybe I should have tried a different project, and not having done it, that's what's going to kill me in the end. That's what will hurt, because I decided to, you know, maybe hang out when I really shouldn't have, or like seeing people that aren't really adding to my development has at this point in my life, right?
You get these moments, I find, where you like come home from having like the same weekend and you just feel so empty. You're like, what did I just do with all that time I spent?
That happened not long
money
ago. That happened like maybe a few weekends ago, where I'm like, this weekend I need to get like so many things done. And then by the end of the weekend, I'd only done less than half of it. And I'm like, this is why I can't do art full time, because I am not where I need to be yet. And that's another thing I had to recognize. It's like letting go of this idea that, you know, I'm not there yet, but like accepting where I am now. So like I have a full-time job right now and I'm exactly where I need to be, but it's not where I want to be. I hate where I am at, but I know it's exactly where. It's like being in like grade 12 or 11, and you know you're not going to be there forever. You know you're going to go to college or work next year or in 2 years. You kind of already know what you're going to do. Like maybe you're already picking classes for your courses, but you're still in high school. Like you're still waiting that period. And that's kind of where I feel like I'm at right now, where I'm like, I'm in a phase where I have to be working full time because I'm not where I want to be financially, and my art isn't there yet. I'm still developing my style. I recognize that. And as a person who's so impatient, sometimes you need to like step back and be like, realize that where you are is exactly where you need to be, even though you do not want to be there. Because what has worked for me in terms of stepping back and looking at everything, it's like I hate it, but I'm on the path to somewhere rather than where I was before, where I had all this time, but I wasn't pushing myself. Now I have no time, so I value it because it's so little that I come home, and if I don't do anything that day, I will feel so shitty because I wasted those 5 hours. When I go to work because someone's paying me, like that person is paying me to be there for 9 hours a day or 8.5 hours a day, why don't I have that same work ethic with something that I'm supposed to love? You know what I mean? Like,
I heard something the other day about working as a creative. It's troublesome because you're a bad employee and an even worse boss.
Exactly.
So it's like you don't know what to do and you wouldn't listen if you did.
That's great. But it's true though. It's like, think about it. You go to work or you have any job where you're employed by someone else, you are going to work a specific way. If you're a good worker, you're going to go in there, you're going to do what you're supposed to, but you're going to work with a specific amount of like energy and you're expected to bring, right? Mm-hmm. But like a lot of people lack that self-discipline when it comes to your own stuff because you're not on any schedule. But like it should be the opposite. Like you should be working even harder to make your stuff work so that you're not going every day to wake up at a specific time that you don't want to go through snow that's terrible on a Monday. And then, you know, for like a check it's just they're paying you for your time. Your time is your most valuable asset. So the little time that I have, I try to dedicate as much of it to making it grow so that one day my time will be mine again and I'll be where I need to be because I worked hard now to get there. And then I'll worry about the relationships that you know I have at that time. But right now I'm not there yet and I'm willing to make those sacrifices. I'm willing to let things go, people go. I am willing to not be able to afford certain things because that's where I need to be right now so that I will value it later on.
How long ago did you get your studio?
My studio's always been whatever space I'm in. So like if it's my bedroom, that'll be my studio. Right now I'm in like the top level of my family's house. So like the attic, which is like just the entire floor. It's like I have like it's a huge space, but like the walls are they're tilted, so like it's a big space. I can't really go too high up on the sides though.
Yeah.
So it limits me, but any space that I'm in will become my studio. And it's been all right. I think it changes depending on what I'm doing. Like for a time I used to tattoo when I was younger and I was doing that for about 3 years and that's where I started doing that, and it was like a completely different space than it is now because it was used for something else. When I'm sculpting or when I was doing resin casting, like the space changes based on what tools I'm using or what things I'm diving into.
Did you get burned out on tattooing? I feel like you would have kind of really thrived in that.
Yeah. It was a mixture of both the clientele I was getting. It was all right, but at the same time, around that time, I'd been in a car accident where it really messed my back up, my lower back, and that prevented me from being in like a crouch sitting position for long periods of time, specifically sitting and then just being there, and that really kind of threw me off that path. And then I just found that I wasn't enjoying it as much as I'd want to in order to do something for the rest of my life. Or like have it as a career. I feel like if you're going to put things on people permanently, you know, you should be driven to do that. And I was starting to lose some drive for it. So I just kind of didn't really feed that and went somewhere else.
I've worked a lot of like really repetitive jobs.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a way they're almost meditative.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I almost thrive in factory settings.
Yeah.
And it's
some of my best ideas have come when my brain was doing other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like, not like repetitive things, I should say.
Do you feel like you're kind of relieved to have something that's stable and very much not art?
Yes and no. Like I was thinking about this the other day because so I started in the company doing embroidery. I'm currently right now, they moved me to screen printing, which is working with shirts and like printing on shirts. So completely different process, completely different department. And I was thinking, I'm like, I really enjoying this position. Like, I'm really like the learning the machine. I really like the process. I'm really enjoying where I'm at right now. And I was like, if I was making a bit more money, I know myself very well. Well, I am myself, right? So I know that, like, if I was making a bit more money where I was comfortable, my art would decline because I was comfortable. And the second I become comfortable, it's easier for me to get home and be like, I'm a bit tired. I'm actually just going to maybe smoke a bowl, maybe just sketch a little and just chill out, you know, maybe go on the computer. Computer's like the new TV, right? Like, no one really sits on the TV or in front of TV where we scroll on our phones now. We just haven't realized it yet that that's the new time killer. But like, it gets so much easier for me to make those decisions when I'm comfortable. But right now I'm not. Right now I'm enjoying the position I'm in, but I'm making enough to pay my bills and enough to start experimenting a bit. But by no means am I comfortable. Like, if I lose a day or two at work, that's an issue. Like, that's an issue for me. Because then I got to start taking funds from my art to kind of supplement back into my bills. And then, you know what I mean? Like, things start off balance. So staying on a schedule for me, building that skill, something I didn't have before. I used to hate getting up in the mornings. Like, there was days where I'm like, I'm going to quit this job because I can't do mornings. Like, I just can't. But it's overcoming that bullshit, those stupid things that our brain have basically we've trained. They're bad behaviors that we have trained. And it's like, no, I have to get up in the morning because I need this job, because I need to pay my bills, because the end goal is to do what I want when I want. And that's how I'm going to get there. These little things, these terrible mornings that I'm having, they all are going to add up. It's like going to high school. We're forced to go to high school. We hate it. It's like a job. We have to socialize with people we don't want, right? We had to do that for 4 years. I mean, you could have dropped out, but like, it was something
8 years prior to that.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like, it was building this for me, it was like a lot of building of a schedule. And growing up, I never got that. I never built those skills. So I struggled a lot more later in life, right? So now I'm in a position where I hate it, where I'm at in my life, but I recognize its value because these are skills that I'm learning. These are times that I'm progressing, and my art isn't necessarily thriving, but it's thriving in the sense that I'm exploring so many new things. And I have lined myself up with so many new projects that I'm so excited for, things that I've never seen done before, that I'm going to explore, that, again, I wouldn't have been able to do had I stayed in that position of, I have all this time, but I'm not making work. So,
ooh. Did you have an experience? Was there like a quarter life crisis or anything where you were like, shit, Man,
I always have crises. Like, every time I make a bit of work and it's like not moving, I'm like, the hell am I doing with my life? Like, my art's not selling. Everyone hates my shit. Fuck this job. I hate everybody.
Then you go crush it at Art Crawl, and then you're like, oh, life is good for another couple days.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, even Art Crawl, like at Art Crawl or the events I do, I just sell like a lot of fan art, and it usually does well. But like, I still do it simply because it makes decent money. So obviously, I'm going to do that. And it gets people introduced. It still introduces new people to my work. So it might not be what I'm doing now, but like, at least people are still enjoying it. Like, people still seem to like it when they see it. And I mean, I can't really, this year I'm going to try, but I can't really sell original work at like Fan Expo. Fan Expo is like a big convention that happens in Toronto, and it's all like, you know, Comic-Con stuff, like superhero stuff and all that. So that's like one of my big events during the year. I'm going to try this coming September. I think it's September when they have it. I'm going to try getting 2 tables, one with my original work and one with the fan art. So that way, if the original stuff doesn't work, I'll still be making money off the fan art. And then if my original stuff does work, it's a good way of seeing how it's gonna be received. So I'm excited to do that, hopefully, at Fan Expo.
Are you going to have different names at some point, do you think? Or
no, I think I'm gonna keep the same name, but then again, it's one of those things where, like, if I can sell original stuff at the convention and not notice a significant drop in revenue, then I'm going to go that route. If I notice that Fan Expo is specifically a place where people just want fan art, I enjoy doing the event, so I might just continue doing that, like just selling the old stuff, and then if it makes money, great. If it doesn't, I still enjoy it.
Would they be connected, though? Would you make it obvious that it's... Because some people might like you might catch their attention just like online with that stuff, and then they'll be like, oh, I like his original stuff even better. Or
I'm not sure. It's interesting. I think because I left the fan art in such a specific place, like it's that specific style that I did it in. Like I didn't explore it in any other type of medium. It's pretty much just like line work done by hand and then digitally colored. I feel like I put it in such a box that I don't want to open it or like explore it because I'm really so tired of fan art, like doing it myself. Because for me, it's very one dimensional. Here's a character. Here's my twist. I'm kind of basically just showcasing my skills, like what I can do as a drawing. I'm not really telling you anything about it. So even the idea of exploring that right now, it's not even something that excites me even a little, but it's interesting to maybe take that and connect it in a way. Like the best way I could think of doing that would be taking elements that people recognize as iconic, which is a lot of the stuff like Cause does. He'll take like, say SpongeBob SquarePants' like eyes, they're pretty iconic, and he'll just blow them up and do just the line work. So like you recognize it, but like it's kind of abstract, so you don't really know what's happening, but it's boiling it down to just like the elements. And that's what I think is interesting about his work, is that you're taking something and you're deconstructing it and you're just presenting the elements. Yet someone can still kind of figure out where it comes from to an extent.
I think we keep coming back to this this concept of the meme. You know, like not, and I don't mean the internet meme, like the Dawkinsian definition of it, right? Like an idea that takes on a life of its own and it evolves, and it becomes very complex trying to separate it from the rest of from an original idea in air quotes. And like you said,
idea.
It's the concept is laughable when you think
it
about
really
it,
is.
like you said, you have all of your own influences,
exactly,
and then you're just you regurgitate a mashup of
your
that.
perspective.
I think I even read you using the word regurgitation somewhere.
Probably.
It might have been, I can't remember where it was, but it was like in an interview somewhere, maybe like on your art crawl, like artist profile or something like that. And your pop art is like your regurgitation of like your twist on everything.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And you take something, and like the older something becomes, like there's like the Flintstones and the Simpsons, and as these things age, they influence things. And now maybe 20 years ago, if you showed someone a Bob's Burgers character or a Family Guy character, and it was like, oh, maybe half of people would have been like, oh, that's from The Simpsons, right? Whereas they spawned all these things, and like at what
reminds me of that episode from South Park.
Yeah,
the Simpsons did it.
Simpsons did it. Yeah, exactly.
Simpsons already did it.
And then, have you seen the Family Guy Simpsons crossover?
No, but I remember the one scene. I remember that where fucking Bob's Burgers is in the
plane. Yeah, he's just like left out.
Yeah.
There's some great crossovers. There's season 5 of Archer, I think, opens with
the Bob's Burgers, because he does the voice, right?
Yeah, that is such a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Like, but what I was gonna say is, can I spoil the Simpsons Family Guy?
Yeah, no, for sure.
You?
Yeah, I've seen it in sporadically, so it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually only recently saw it. I'd seen clips.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The fight.
That's what I saw. Yeah, the plane scene I saw.
Yeah, so it's a 2-part episode. So the way they aired it was The Simpsons are on side by side with Family Guy.
Yeah.
So the first one took the Simpsons time slot.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's smart.
And the second one took the Family Guy time slot. And in the first episode, Peter and Homer get along really well.
Yeah.
And in the second episode, things start to turn sour. And by the end of it, they take each other to court.
Yeah.
Because it's gotten so bad, and Fred Flintstone is the judge.
That's amazing. That's so great.
So it's like you get these like, you just realize it's all an archetype, you know, of this kind of
so
old-fashioned father. And this kind of like doofus of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just thrust into this role. And there's no original idea. Just like, you know, that amazing, air quotes, original art piece, The Metamorphosis of Narcissus. Wait, what's Narcissus? That's a Greek myth. This is fan art.
Well, you know what? I was just nailed it. But you know what? I was just watching a video today, I think it was, of I wouldn't even be able to tell what painting it was, but it was a painting of the Titan eating his son, because the mythology is he was warned or whatever that he had to eat his kids, otherwise one of them would grow up to exile him from his kingdom, and his son ended up being, so he would keep eating his kids, and until his wife took one of their youngest and hid the kid. The kid ended up being Zeus, and then he ended up exiling the Titans from the kingdom or whatever. But this painter, he was influenced by another painter who they depicted the scene of him eating his child so raw, like so differently than it had been depicted before, because before he's a Titan eating his kids, so his kids are tiny, which means when he eats them whole. They live in his stomach, actually, in like the mythology. But the way these two artists had depicted it was a newborn being mauled by the father, like in proportion to like.
Yes, I've seen that one.
Yeah, and then one of the artists saw the other one, and then he made a painting, which is even more it's very there isn't much it doesn't have a lot of depth in it, but it's so I don't know, it's so captivating because it feels, again, very raw. Like it's depicting a very grotesque scene of a child being, you know, mauled by the father. But it's so interesting how they saw a scene and decided to take it somewhere else, somewhere a lot darker, and then mess with the proportions while still telling that same story. It's crazy. But yeah, fan art.
Man, I love Zeus.
Yeah,
I'm going to draw him all buff. No way, dude. That's not how you eat a baby.
I'll show you how to eat a baby. Fucking 4 months later. That's how you eat a baby. It's actually, you know what, it's part of the black, I remember they called it the black painting series, because this artist, he put it in his home. So like he made these murals in his house. So like it was a painting that he never even made for people to see. It wasn't meant for anyone to see because he never even documented it existed until the artist died and they went into his homes and they saw these really grotesque. And that painting of the guy eating, or the Titan eating his son, was painted in like the dining room, right where like fucking eat.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's called the dark or the black painting series.
Have you? There's a Netflix documentary about this artist who he inspired a lot of the imagery for the technology in the Alien series. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So this old, I want to say he was German or something, but I could just be pulling that out of nowhere. But this old dude, and he had this. He said he was pulling it from another dimension, and it all has this very strict, like rigid theme, and everything has kind of like a science to it, almost like a.
It all kind of makes sense within its universe type thing.
Exactly.
Kind of goes
yeah.
together.
So like, there's kind of laws that govern the creation of these, or like the development of these beings, and all of them seem to
make sense.
Yeah, and it's disturbing as hell. And he turned his whole property into like this kind of art exhibit of like, it's almost like he's like pulling this world into
that's
our
amazing.
world.
That's incredible.
And I don't know how I think it's one of those things where it was like such a niche thing, and he had like maybe a couple of buyers and like some I want to say it was Tchaikovsky, maybe Brahms, or both one or both of them. I don't remember. One of the like classical composers were able to do all of their work and create these pieces because of like an elderly woman who kind of like took him in and just had a lot of money, loved his music, and just like was like, this is what you do. I'm commissioning all of your work.
Yeah, that's what great artists need. Is like just take the load
Sugar
off.
mama.
Yeah, just take the load off of society off you and just create.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, the dream.
Yeah.
But
That's amazing though.
yeah, it's called Dark something. But yeah, it was. I feel like I don't know if I even finished watching it. I was like mesmerized for a bit, and as soon as I got out of it, I was like, I can't go back there. That was too fucked up.
Can't go there. That's crazy.
Now that I think about it, I had my very first anxiety attack at the Hamilton Art Gallery.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I was
Did
at
art do that to you?
yeah.
Wow.
I was at art camp.
Isn't that amazing?
It is in retrospect,
it?
and it's like even like when it overwhelms you,
Right? Isn't that I think that's absolutely incredible. There's a phenomenon, I forget what it's called, but there's a phenomenon where like people will see art. It was happening when there was a lot of, I forget when it was happening. There's a lot of people seeing art for the first time in like these classical paintings, and it was a phenomenon where people like just faint, just pass the hell out. Because it was
Yeah.
just so overwhelmed by like its beauty that they hadn't seen works of art like that before. But it's like, I think when you can remember such a physical response from an artwork, or like that you had that experience, yeah, it must have sucked. I'm sure it must have been terrible.
I was just like crying. I'm like, I don't want to
Yeah.
go back to art camp.
Yeah, but
And
like,
I actually just had the flashback when you said the war with the now I'm saying Nerf with the super soaker,
dude, the Super Soaker, yeah,
right? And I just had that, like, it was so dark, but it was also meaningful.
Yeah.
And it was a very similar exhibit. It was by a I remember this from when I was like 5 or 6 years old. It was by like a Japanese artist, and it was all about the nuclear fallout
yeah,
from the bombs. And like when I heard the story behind it, because a 6-year-old doesn't have any concept of
absolutely.
this, and then I started seeing it in the art, and it's not the same as just a photograph.
No,
Because they're capturing the essence of
Emotion,
that
the
suffering.
emotion of it, yeah.
Exactly. And it was too much for me to handle.
yeah, that's
And-
crazy. I dream for my art to do that to someone, because that means you're connecting on a very raw level, on something that they haven't necessarily experienced before. And that to me is like the end goal, is to have people feel that kind of way years after I'm dead, way after I'm gone, because that means you're putting value into the kind of your experience. All the information you're getting and you're regurgitating it out, it's coming out through the lens of your perspective as a human being here during the time you were alive. And if that can echo through, time way beyond you, that's, I think, what I value the most from my work. And that's what I want to reach. Because hearing that, it's like, I wish I would knew what work it was.
What's crazy is that it feels like such a tangible goal when you work towards it. Like, like I want my art to do something for people.
Yeah.
It might have already done it. And
Yeah,
you might never
exactly.
know.
But for me, it's like, I'll never know. And that's something that like, that's why I want to keep making more and keep pushing that line, so that it's like, I'm going to push it as far as I can, so that eventually the farther I go, maybe it'll do that to someone, right? It's like the more I leave behind, the better chance of that happening, at least to someone. And I think getting that emotional response is like, you're reaching beyond just here's a photo or here's an image. It's you're visually engaging on such a important level to that person that they might not be able to control how they end up receiving it, all that information, right? It's just your brain receiving information. So it's like you almost short circuit it. Like, how can you do that visually?
100%. Yeah.
It's easier to do with music. Music can touch you so many levels, right? Because like, even like the way someone talks to you, can alter your mood or alter how you receive what they're telling you. So you do that with sound. That's why I love music, because music can touch so many people, and it's so universal. You don't need words to really engage with someone. And doing that visually is a lot more difficult. And I think for me, it goes into like color theory. Like all of color theory is really important, or like how you can tell an arc in a story based on color. That's something that I love exploring, like how I can make you feel some kind of way. Or like if I present you something with, for example, my paintings, and rarely do I use just red. You won't see any red in my paintings. You'll see like a variation, like a pink or pinks or something close to it. Never use red. That's because I'm setting the rules for how I want colors to impact you. So when I do use red, it'll really affect you. At least if you're noticing my work, it'll stand out compared to everything else. So
I feel like in the Chiefs world, everything is ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Everything. So then when I present something opposite, that's when it'll really, really impact you. So it's about building that world, right? It's about getting you to recognize my style and then changing it visually. So how can I do that with colors? How can I do that with lines? It's a lot easier to do, at least in my head, with sound, because again, it's universal. I don't need words. You can hear when something is ominous, you know it, or when something has a deep sound, it affects us a certain way, as opposed to something very high pitched. So it's easier to kind of engage with someone. So visually it's different, but end goal is the same for me.
My last guest, actually, Keiko, she studies music cognition.
Yeah.
At McMaster, so we were actually getting into some of that conversation, and
it's all related. It's all related because it's all about, how we receive, that's information we're receiving, and then what are you trying to tell someone, right? Communication. I'm communicating something to you. What is it I want to communicate, and can I do it so beautifully that it'll last a long time? Because then that means the message is a lot stronger. That means it's going to be impactful for a lot longer because it's put together in a proper way. One
thing she was saying is that music, there's no, and I would almost guarantee that it's almost the same case with visual art, but there's no center for processing music in the brain. When people are played music and they listen to it in an active MRI, you see all different parts of the brain
light up,
oxidizing, which is the lighting up. That's what she explained. And I'm almost positive that visual art is the same thing, where it's not just your visual cortex. And just like with music, it's not like when you hear a sound, there's a part of your brain that hears the sound. Yeah. But when you listen to music, there's emotional sensors lighting up. Yeah. There's parts of it makes you want to move and stuff.
Exactly.
So it's almost like, once again, like capturing the spirit of something, and you're communicating.
So I'm so envious of music as a medium, because I have I'm terrible with music. Like I cannot, I don't know. My brain just doesn't get composing music. And I'm envious of it as a medium because of exactly that reason.
I actually make my living proving people wrong.
Do you? Okay, well then we'll have to talk more about that then, because music, it's exactly that. It's connecting on an emotional level, and trying to do that visually is what I'm trying to do. But again, it's so much easier to kind of hit those notes where you kind of guide. You set it up audibly how you want it, and then you can do the drops or really direct how you want the mood to change type thing, right? Through time. But like art, once it's presented to you, it's there, the whole thing. And now you have to kind of deconstruct it, either through the way the artist wants to tell the story, but it's all presented to you, right? It's like kind of stuck in time. Music plays through time, right? You have to gut from the start to the end. It's kind of like a movie, right? It takes you through the journey. Art is all presented at once. So I have to tell that story with the bang. Even if it's not at the start, you're going to see it at the start because it's presented all at once. So it's about being able to guide you using those rules of composition, color theory. They're there for a reason, because when you're telling a story, if you can nail these, it's kind of like the language of art. If more people understood composition, then you'd be able to look at a story and kind of see what the artist is trying to tell you. So if these guidelines are set up that way, it's easier for me to kind of engage with you. But it have to do it through like certain different tools. So like you'll have you know what tools to use. For example, sound bites, right? Remember when you like with the cricket thing, it completely sets a different mood.
Yeah.
Just a quick sound like that, right? So art can do the same thing for a room. Art can do the same thing for a space. But with the way I want to do it is I'm using these elements, these cartoon elements. The reason my whole thing is cartoons is because I want to use something that's nostalgic to almost everybody. Cartoons are things we engage with more so as children. They usually are more a part of our lives growing up. They're just stuff we're given to right away through our parents, through other kids we engage with. They're watching it, we watch it. It's kind of something everyone watches growing up. Maybe not later in life, depending on like the person, of course. But I use symbolisms or things that are easy recognizable so that I can capture your attention just a little quicker and so that I can narrate the story between what is innocent and then adulthood, which is the common theme I have in most of my work. My main character is a composition of famous characters into one so that it's simple to easy to digest, and you kind of already know it's a protagonist without me having to tell you, because you recognize it without you directly recognizing it. Mm-hmm. So you can see it's not you know the character not as a villain because you see him as you've seen Mickey. Same outfit. Same as...
little Felix the cat.
Exactly. But he's not a cat. In fact, I've actually not told anyone, but like he's a little demon. He's a little demon and he's devious. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's always up to kind of no good, or he's always in situations that he finds himself that are very lustful or not of things of virtue, right? And it's that contrast between what we end up doing as adults versus what we're presented as children. We know characters, we know cartoons as innocent. We know the story they're telling us. They're basic stories. They're things to help us grow as people, right? It's usually do good things, kind of kid shows, right? They teach you kind of very fundamental, basic things, how to get along. But then as we grow older, we don't necessarily have new mediums that kind of guide us through the way these cartoons did. So for me, it's kind of like a clash of taking things that we grew up with and abrupt, like really hard, given a hard interaction between that and then adulthood. So it's taking this character, which is very innocent. By nature, he's a demon, but he is innocent. And then introducing him to booze, to women, to lustful things. Again, things we don't find virtuous. But then why am I doing that? Well, it also has a state of where I am in my life and the things that I'm kind of working towards or working through, and the things that I see other people value aren't necessarily of things of value, but they're things that they hold very highly. So I'm trying to tell these stories. They all have they're all different stories with this character who finds himself in this world, but he's essentially of an innocence. So he comes of a place of innocence. Like his creation is a mascot for princesses and kids' stories.
I love that idea because it's like that he's a demon, but he's innocent.
Yeah.
And it's almost...
he's a demon just because he was made, just because I made him that way.
Well, it's almost like he's like the embodiment of
like he has
that guy on your shoulder,
exactly,
that makes you do all the bad things, and he's innocent in his in his approach because he's just drawn to all the bad things.
Exactly.
So it's there's a lot of...
it's a reflection on also ourselves in the sense of like the information we receive. Again, I boil it down to us being computers. We receive information, but essentially we're all built the same. We should start with, I mean, obviously not blank, but like until we start receiving information, we start changing the perspective of our world. Negative experiences will change the way we see certain things or certain people. We might act a certain way towards certain people based on biases that we create. Everyone has biases. But again, it's about taking yourself and being put into a situation, into a world in which you're just kind of you're put into it. you didn't really have a say. You couldn't be, you weren't born on a different planet if you wanted to be. You were born here. You might have been born in a different country, different continent, but essentially you're being thrown into an existence without, you didn't decide it, and you grew into a world based on the information you received. So it's the same thing with this character. It's thrusting him from an innocence into a world that is anything but. And then now that I'm presenting that world is, okay, well, what's this character going to do? Is he going to resist the things around him? Is he going to fall into it? Or is he going to hatch a plan to kind of tell the different story within this narrative, within this world? So a lot of my things will have twists that are very innocent. For example, like I'll draw like an OE bottle with little Mickey yellow shoes. Yeah. And I want to have him animated to like that waltz, that like very innocent walk. But again, it's about presenting things that are kind of things that can hold people back and not necessarily great for us in a very digestible way, so that it seems harmless. But then, you have to really dissect it. Well, is it like it's booze, but like, is it just booze? Does it affect more people than we realize? Like, why are we really drinking that much?
It's just part of this world that you are literally just stumbling through as a child.
Exactly.
And I like the way things are portrayed. You get I like that the broccoli is like the little guy's
nutrition
best
is dope.
Friend.
Yeah,
nutrition is dope. that can be inverted.
Yeah,
nicely.
Actually, there's a show I used to watch real quick. It's called Mission Hill. It's an old animated show, and that's where they used to do there's a scene where they're like in high school and they used to do like PA announcements and like they were promoting something, and like at the end the guy's just like, don't forget kids, nutrition is dope. And then I'm like, that's hilarious. And then I always think of broccoli as obviously broccoli has two meanings in my work, both of nutrition and of nutrition of the mind, I should say.
Yeah.
But lately, if you look at some of the paintings I've done, they're all, or there's one, I'll paint like a scene where it doesn't look like it's going great for the protagonist. But if you look at the small details, and usually the small details are little broccolis, they have their own plan happening in the background. And that's a reference to, unfortunately for me, when I smoke, I get more creative. And I say unfortunately because that means I got to smoke. My mind is it can get very agitated, and smoking helps me kind of mellow that out and focus more on an idea and explore that idea. And so that's where that came from. It's like I might find myself in situations that I'm not happy, but if I take a creative approach to it, I can usually come up with a better solution for that situation. So that's a reflection of that, where I'll have scenes where it doesn't look like it's going to go well, but if you pay attention to the smaller little details, it'll paint a larger story of a scene that's about to happen, kind of the revenge that's about to happen, or it's about to turn for the villain.
That's cool. And you've I feel like just recently you've introduced villains into the world.
There's actually
wolves.
Yeah, the wolves were so fun to do. That scene actually was from a small sketch I had before, and it had a lot more of a political message. I had the wolves there were 3 wolves that surrounded, and it was supposed to be a car kind of off the scene. It had the car's high beams were on the 3 wolves, and 3 wolves were dressed as cops, and there was like a piggy, like Porky the Pig kind of elements, and he was like tied up like they were gonna roast him. And I'm like, I'm not even sure the message I'm trying to send with this, and it would be such a strong message that and I think it's too...
You felt it was too volatile to let
toward
out
anything.
The world.
Yeah, for me not to have a direct stance on what the hell am I even saying. It would be like me shouting something that I don't even know. In a different
language.
Yeah, that I don't really even know what I mean by it.
It's like you received this message out of the ether, and it's a different language, and it's like, yell this as loud
exactly
as you can. And then you started to, and then you're like, you got the megaphone, you got up on the rooftop,
exactly.
and then you went, I'm gonna think about this.
That's exactly it. That's exactly how I felt about it. Because sometimes, like, But that's the thing. Like, if you get like when I get ideas, I have to fully draw them out and finish them in my sketchbook. That's why I don't like showing people my sketchbooks, because, like, for example, if someone saw that, they might get an impression that maybe I'm against police or like whatever, some political message I might have. But that idea ended up being something completely different. What worked for that idea was the composition. That's why I liked it so much. It wasn't necessarily the message. It was how I had set up that initial scene. So sometimes it's about dissecting your own ideas and realizing that they might look like that sketch was finished. It was all pretty much fleshed out, ready to just start painting. But again, the message might have been done, but I wasn't even sure what the hell the message was. It was a strong one, but like, was that what I was trying to send? And I realized that for me, it's the way I set up the scene that I liked. So then I used the same wolves, and then painted a different meaning. So like in that painting with the wolves, that's one of the scenes where like I have characters ready to attack, because like the wolves are going after the money, and the wolves are all wearing different shorts. And those shorts...
Do you mind if I pull it up while you talk to it?
Sure.
Because I've seen it, but now that you're talking about it, I want to see all these details.
Yeah, I'll guide you through it, actually. So let me see if here it is. So the wolves, did you have it?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way I connected the wolves were with the yellow. So they all have yellow on them, and the yellow is either like on their head. One's wearing pants and one's wearing a shirt, and whatever is on their like clothing item is what they're going to do. So, for example, they're grabbing, like, they're surrounded the money bag, right? Well, the guy's shorts are little moon, right? Little moons. So, like, he represents sleeping. So, so if I sleep too much, or if I don't work enough, like if I'm lazy, that's going to eat away at my money, right? Because I'm not making stuff, so I'm not making money. If I eat out too much, food is a big part of like where I spend my money. Like I feel like a lot of people end up spending $10 here, $20 there, going out, like just little things, and that adds up. So like my money was going towards food, too much of it.
Yeah.
And the last thing was, when I don't have money, I'm not making money.
I don't even want to think about how much I blew while I was going at college, and just because I was too lazy to make lunches.
But that's what I'm trying to depict with these wolves. It's like they all represent something else. On the right here, I have like the little broccolis. They have like a slingshot, and they're about to launch into like one of the wolves. And then I have the guy in one of the boxes, and they also have slingshots, and they're basically surrounding. I got poison at the top right, which is going to fall on the wolf on the right, and then bees in the left corner of the top shelf, signifying like if I staying busy will overcome these things, right? Because it's laziness, it's not having money, and it's spending it on food when I could be making food. So it's the busy bees kind of represents the getting to work type thing.
That's what defeats that.
Exactly. So if you can't really see it in the photo, but like the broccoli they're all aiming at different things. And they're all getting ready for the next scene. So they're about to rescue the money bag from the center. So it's a scene that's being set up that way. And then the little black guy that's at the bottom, he represents the shadow of the main character. So like there's no one else that's going to help you through your process except you. Like no one else is going to hold your hand and force you to work except literally your own, like you yourself.
This just got... All right, I'm gonna let's make this. Why not? It's almost like you've split your shadow,
yeah,
into two shadows, and what was initially your shadow,
yeah,
is now an animus within itself.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's.
So also like introducing
a
new character as well into that world, right?
I love the concept of the yin and yang, and it's yang.
Yeah.
And it's just like whenever you think about anything for long enough, you come back to that.
Yeah.
And you have this character who's split into two, and it's like one side represents desire and the other represents tenacity.
Yeah.
And on their own and untamed, both of them are evil. But they have the potential for achieving good.
Exactly.
So
yeah. Interesting.
So it's like the little pink guy.
Yeah.
The regular chief.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, shush, I'm going to get this money.
Yeah.
Right? But that's just the desire.
Exactly.
And without the slingshot, and the desire to do what it takes to overcome the wolves, he can't get it.
Exactly.
And then the other one on his own is just this kind of
he's a shadow.
ball of
exactly.
Yeah, it's just a shadow.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just what's like what needs to be done.
Yeah,
what this
it's the absence, right? Or it's just like the just like a blob shape of not totally there. But yeah, that's the type of things that I want to explore more of. Like I want to get those ideas really dive into more of that type of exploration, because that ultimately what I'm saying is these are internal battles that I have, and clearly I'm not the only one, and someone else is going to relate with it and realize that what I'm saying is you need a plan, you need to figure things out, and you need to realize that though it might not look like it's going well, if you strategize and work on how to make things better for yourself, they will. And that's what I'm trying to depict with that scene. It's setting yourself up for, okay, this is what's happening now. It's not great. What are you going to do next? Are you going to stay here? Is it going to get worse? It's up to you to decide that, because it's your own life. It's your own decisions, your own path. You can be a victim of your situation, or you can decide to kind of pull yourself together, realize it's only going to be you in this, and make it happen, or don't.
That's incredible. And that right there is the reason I love Picasso.
Yeah.
Because the nail in the coffin for me is Guernica, right? Because you get the entire socio-political landscape of like an entire decade of a country's history laid out in a painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like an entire history book.
Yeah.
I drew it.
Yeah. And you know what? That's why it's so important to understand, just like you understand music. If you really get into art, understand the rules of art, understand the style really get into the style of an artist, because then it's like learning a language. Once you understand what an artist does, or an artist, they're known for, when they start breaking their own rules on purpose and exploring new things, you'll see it in their work, and you'll really, really be captivated, because you'll understand the process in which that artist is going. You'll understand more the story they're trying to tell. Just like that. If you can easily depict, you can start breaking down that giant painting. You're going to be able to tell a story that you can't tell just by looking at it necessarily. A lot is happening, and it's incredibly emotional, but what can you really get out of it if you don't really necessarily know the language of the artist? You can get a lot out of it emotionally, but you can get much more, is what I'm trying to say, if you kind of know the artist.
It's almost like a picture is worth 1,000 words.
And that is a great note.
I just came up with that.
Did you?
Yeah. You've never heard it before, right?
No, you should trademark that.
I'm going to try. Just like, actually, you might be getting some notes from Gene Simmons about the money bags. He's, I think he actually has that TM'd.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the world of art, in the sense of like the way I see it is like the things I'll leave behind, because I'm not going to be able to talk to everybody who sees my work, and I don't know how long I'll be here. I could die next year, a year later, 10 years, who knows? But 60, right? But what matters to me, what's the most important, is that I at least document the experiences I've had as a human, because down the line, if more humans have that experience, they're going to connect with the work and realize that I'm trying to show you that things are bad, but you can make them better, at least for yourself, without telling you a single word, without saying it to you, because amazing. I won't be there.
And that's an incredible approach to it, that to look at it all, you know, like you're just this character in this cartoon world, where it's not, you know, maybe it's not so scary to try something new. Maybe it's not so scary to, you know, take on the wolves to get what you want.
Exactly.
Maybe you have some little friends looking out for you.
Your friends don't have to be big, right? It's about how smart can you be, how creative can you be. That's why I love doing the broccoli, because they're so tiny and they're always like, they have their own personality, which is always kind of just happy regardless of the situation. And it's because regardless of the situation, they're trying to come up with a solution, or they know that it's bad, but oh well, it's bad. Kind of, that's their approach. And there's this other character I draw too, which is he looks just like. So I think you touched upon it, the yin and yang. He's the one with the skull face, right? So like in the wolves one, it's a shadow, but like if you. So he has let's see if I can find a better one. He's basically the exact same character, except his face is a skull, and he represents death. And he's always in these situations as well in some way. So if you look back at like the wolf painting, for example, he isn't there physically, like I didn't paint him, but under the box that the guy's coming out of, it has like a logo, which is like death has its own brand in this universe. So kind of like the Acme and like Looney Tunes, death has its own brand with his face on it
of everything that kills you.
Not only that, but like a representation that death is everywhere. It's not necessarily it's not necessarily obvious. It's not necessarily in a bad way. Like sometimes it'll be in the shape of an ice cream. But like I'm saying something about death always being there. And death has like the character of death that I have in this universe is very playful and doesn't really care because he's inevitable. We will cease to exist. Death will always be around. Death is us. Death is the opposite of us, right? It is the ceasing to exist, right? Mm-hmm. So having that as a reminder in my paintings is, again, a reminder I'm leaving behind that you are here now, you will go, you don't know when. So either do what you're going to do, but death is still going to be there. And that's why I wanted to make sure I did it in like, make it so that he has a brand, so that it could be on clothing. Maybe it's a design on a shirt the character's wearing, a drink they're having. Just because it's like, I want it to be subtle, but a reminder still.
It's also the source of all the pleasures in life as well, because if it was never going to end and it's just like you will eventually experience anything, then what value does experience have?
Right. So there's a constant reminder that it's not like that at all. And death, and in my universe, that little character death is just kind of like in this one painting I'm doing, this one that I'm working on right now, he's getting shot by arrows. Like they're all kind of together and they're getting shot by arrows, and the other ones are kind of worried about it, and he's being like super dramatic, and he's already has arrows in him, and he's kind of like fake fainting. But it's that playfulness that like death really doesn't care what's happening in your situation. It's the ultimate equalizer. Like we are all going to experience. Everyone before you who was super successful has experienced it. Everyone who is going to be super successful, the richest people you can think of, we are all going to take that journey at the end. So it doesn't matter whether we realize it or not, it's there. And it shouldn't change how hard it shouldn't change whether we go for the things we need to in our lives. And that's why I make sure I put it in some way. It's kind of like my Where's Waldo of my work, at least my paintings. Little clues.
I love that.
Because it's like if you're in a good place, like, you know, like right here in this room, we don't think of death, but death literally you can get electrocuted by something, or you could slip.
Dead Nirvana face. We got
there. You go.
That's skull,
that'd be
Daisy
great.
Skull there.
I love that reminder of death. You don't even realize it.
Yeah, just
Like even in the calendar, that's the face of death right in the center.
yeah. The Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
The you draw some bodacious ladies.
I love bodacious ladies. That's the lustfulness of my work.
I like that they're all depicted as like nurturing and giving, but it's the character that has a problem. So it's like they're not a problem, but the character will literally drown in women. And there's
Yes.
you have a few where he just like dies.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
face plants in the booty with like and just like this is it.
And he's dead. Yeah. I love the form of women. I think that's something that's really, I think that's more of a personal thing than it is me saying more about anything than it is just like I enjoy it. I think the idea of women has like this, I don't know, this not forsaken, but like this thing that he's trying to go after. Like I explained recently in a post that like there's a post I did where my character woke up. So everything before that post has been a dream. So if you look from that post to back, he's surrounded by women. He's women everywhere. There's booze everywhere. There's a lot more broccoli everywhere. But if you look at the post after he's woken up, he's been chasing something. There are no women around him. He's not having a good time, and he's constantly going for something. And it's that idea that things change constantly, and they can change instantly. You don't control that always. You don't necessarily are ready for things to come at you really fast. But when they do, it's about adapting. And that's kind of why I removed all the stuff before when I create. Like, I think the first post I have is of like just original work I did. And then really right after is like one of the first paintings I did with the character in it. And then that's where that journey started. And then it's a lot of comics and just, again, lustful stuff. Stuff that is doesn't necessarily have substance. But to him, it's such a strong desire. Like women is such a because it's so instinctive, right? Like we want to mate. We're built as breeders, right? We're animals, right? Mm-hmm. Civil, but animals. And there's that innate, inherent need to want to breed. And it's like, do we overcome that? Do we, is it bad? Do we kind of nurture that? How do we approach that? So then this character who, again, should be coming from a place of innocence is still being overwhelmed by these things that we may have desires, the desires we have as just beings, I guess, to reproduce, that thing that drives us.
So how's the little guy been adjusting to the dream, and how do the female figures present themselves in his new reality?
Well, so far they have not presented themselves. I think because I've wanted to focus more on the change. So like I want to present scenes where he's still chasing, because it's a reflection of where I am. Like I was telling you before, I'm not where I want to be. But it's not about pouting about it and being upset about it. It's about devising a plan and realize that you are responsible for, where you're going to go, and not being a victim of where I am now. And that's a bad thing. Like I'm in a bad place. So I'm going to make bad paintings. I'm going to make angry paintings because, that's how I feel. No, I'm going to paint something that I want, which is to create a plan to get out of where I am and to face those demons directly in the face by giving them one. And then how can I draw circles around them? Literally, like how can I create a plan around them? It's about visualizing the problem and then overcoming it. So I guess adapting is where he's at. Adapting, and then hopefully, we'll get back to a place of lustful things. I say hopefully simply because I love drawing women. Just aesthetically, It's awesome.
But you'll see how they...
But I got to see how the story...
materialize.
Yeah, exactly. I got to see how the story... how I want the story to pan out. Even with products that I create, I want them to have their own story or their own meaning behind it.
That's hilarious how sorry to cut you off,
no,
but as a creative person, how you're excited to see what you paint next.
I feel so narcissistic too sometimes, because I'll be like, honestly, the thing that inspires me the most would just looking at my old work. Like, I hate to say things, I don't say them often, but sometimes, like even yesterday or a couple days ago, like I've been working on a few new products and I'm just stumped with where to take things, and I'm just scrolling through my old stuff. I'm like, actually, I'm quite excited now. Like, I know where I can, what places excited me before that I didn't really venture enough of, and now I'm kind of going to go those directions now. So I like that idea that I can start, I have enough built up that I can look back and be like, that excited me then and it's still kind of exciting now, so let's explore it.
Well, damn. All right, we're approaching 2.5 hours.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I feel like I could keep chatting for days, but maybe that just means I should have you on again.
Absolutely.
sometime.
I'd love to do it again.
All right, man.
That was great.
I mean, I'm going to do it in the descriptions and stuff, but is there anything you're particularly excited about that you want to...
Yes, but they're not things I can promote. They're projects that I'm going to start working on later this year. Not later this year, and hopefully within the next like 3 months. But they're things that like would take my art from what it is now into like a completely different, like expanding the world that I have. So I'm very excited for that. Incredibly excited. But again, it's one of those things where I'm sure I'll tell you once it's more developed and I have things to show you. I'll definitely show you, get you in on the behind the scenes before it goes anywhere.
Oh, well, that's it. You're set for season 2.
Yeah.
of the I've decided I'm going to do this in seasons because I don't want to do it every week.
No. How many seasons or how many episodes do you have so far?
This is number 5, I believe.
How many do you want to get in a season?
I initially said 7 because I like that number, and then I was like, "Is that lazy?
God rested on the 7th day, so maybe you should go with 6.
Yeah, well,
I mean, don't want to one up anyone.
Go down. I jacked it up to 10. I jacked it up to 14. I was like, "Nah, double that." And then I was like, "What if I get discouraged? What if I get to 7?" I'm like, I should have stopped at 7, and then I view 7 as a failure. So I compromised at 10.
10, yeah.
And
do you have people lined up to talk with?
For the
because I feel
in
like
my head,
I feel like that would push or pull your line. Like you might get more excited depending on who you have.
If
you confirm them or like,
yeah, I kind of had I have people who I kind of know will do it.
Yeah,
who are relatively exciting. I'm also trying. Not to go fully musical with it, because obviously my network in that area is a lot stronger, so it would be extremely easy for me to just call up like all the music people that I know, like producers or just people who have been in touring bands or whatever, and just be like, come tell some stories for an hour. I want to really keep it very broad, and
get some diversity in there.
Yeah, so I've had some diversity on a musical level in the first 4 episodes. Episode 1, which has been taken down, so I think we might do an 11th episode to celebrate, and we'll call it episode 1B because
episode 1 side 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Throw in some music references and you just flip the tape.
Yeah, exactly. It's the B side.
Yeah, B side.
But it's like one of those B sides where it's actually the better song. Like, Don't Let Me Down by the Beatles is the B-side.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's not on an album. It was just it was the B-side of a single.
Wow.
Yeah, Don't Let Me Down. Well, this is a throwaway.
Yeah. That's all right. We don't do that.
Yeah. So we had Graham King from my metal band Zero Fire just come in on a day that we had a blizzard, and we actually ended up canceling band practice, and he just lives down the street. And I'd been talking about this for a year, and it just started becoming more realistic. And now that I have
A setup.
like all the equipment, I've kind of thought about it. I'm like, well, I record musicians live, and that's a lot more complicated than just
Talking, yeah.
yeah. So we did episode 1, which was a blast. A few people got to hear it before, because we were listening to music on the on the aux cord, and like I say, Rick Astley didn't have a problem with us, but another band did. I'm not even going to mention you guys.
No free promotion.
No,
It's
exactly.
not good business.
It's a band that
It's not good business.
Yeah,
Gotta pay for your spot.
yeah, you know what? We were using it in a transformative manner.
Yeah.
So that means we were perfectly in our rights to do so.
Yeah.
But I'm too lazy to dispute it. I'm just going to record another episode.
Yeah.
Then we had Nathan Fleet, who's a filmmaker, but also he does film scoring, and he's an educator. So he teaches both music and film production.
I had to get in contact with you because I want to start filming a lot of my process.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like I want to start recording, like documenting some of my works, kind of the way I describe them to you. Like, for example, like that wolf one, like not many people know the story behind it. They see it, and unless I put in a description, then yeah, but like I'd like to kind of do a progress video. And then very important, music is like so important for captivating people, especially when you're doing a quick video. Like I want to keep them like at 5 minutes ish.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, that'd be great if I can get in contact or talk to you more about that.
Yeah.
I'll show you what I have once I have something, and then
I've got
we'll
like
go from there.
a team that, and also I'm kind of new to like branching off on my own. I've always, I've kept my creative works sort of to myself. I've been a bass player for, for a decade. I spent, doing that. I went to, I've always been a part of a band, so I've been a part of some bigger project, and just since 2014,
Started working on your own more.
Exactly, and it's scary because, like I said, I'm a bad employee and an even worse boss. But through a lot of the stuff that you've been describing, that same kind of process, kind of realizing the flip side of that.
Absolutely.
Where when you let the boss slack off, where he ends up driving you don't like it.
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
But I still, I let him drive me into a ditch.
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, I'm going to let someone else be the boss.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is worse. And now I'm, the boss agrees with me.
Yeah.
And, I like, now we're going to keep our eyes on the road. So dopechiefapparel.com.
Yeah. Or just dopechief.com.
Oh, you have both?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I made sure, like, pro tip, anyone who wants to get, like, getting a name or anything, just do a quick website search. Make sure no one has it. If no one has the website, you're good to go. That's like the first thing you should ever check.
Did you have to buy dopechief.com from someone?
No, I didn't. That's how I knew it was golden.
Oh, nice.
Many years back. That's how I do, like, when I was looking for names or stuff like that. It's like, if the domain's taken, then someone's already thought of it. Probably going to be harder to get. Like, the simpler you can keep your domain, the easier it is to get traffic, because it's so easy to remember. Like, even Dope Chief Apparel, people would forget that so quick.
Yeah.
But if it's just the name, then it's like .com.
Man,
keep it simple.
I cannot believe that I'm still seeing like young bands, new bands on the circuit with the famous band names. I'm like, really?
Way?
You didn't like? I'm trying to. Oh, I saw one a little while back called Enigma, and a Google search will reveal that was like a European synth pop band from the 80s who was quite famous.
Yeah.
Like you didn't Google your own band name? What is wrong with you?
I know. Like, come on. We're so connected with so many people around the world. Like, that's the kind of problem that's okay in like the 90s when you didn't know much about a scene across the sea. Yeah. But now it's like, you know the history of pretty much any music scene or whatever. Just quick Google search, you'll find them. Yeah, make sure you Google your name before you decide to go with it.
All right. That's pro tips from Dope Chief.
Yeah, it's the only one I got.
Work hard.
Work very hard.
Yeah.
Sacrifice everything.
Conquer the wolves and Google your fucking website name.
Before you get it, yeah.
You're listening to the Michael AM radio show on the internet. Good night or whatever time you're listening to this at.